Brett Tippie is joining us for Gypsy Tales.
I've been on top of a big cliff drop or something. You have to have that switch of, I'm doing it. I don't care what happens. Risking their lives, but they're doing it, and they're doing it controlling, put on a good show and getting a rush. They're going so big and they're doing such wild tricks that most people can't comprehend it. You got to do something now because you're going to remember it forever, and you can't go back and change it. So do it the way you want to remember it. For a number of years I was making good money, and then at one point I started making over 100 grand a year. 100 grand a year to a redneck kid is a lot of money. Before I knew it, I was doing it all the time, going hard and staying up for days, slowly just degraded into full-blown addiction, where eventually I lost every single sponsor because I wasn't going to shoots. I was blowing it, and I'm not proud of those times. It's like a nightmare. Like, I was a professional mountain biker. I was an athlete. I'm embarrassed.
I am always excited to partner with great brands that I personally use. Quadlock has a wide array of products that integrate seamlessly into every facet of my daily life, whether at the office, en route to my next adventure, or during the adventure itself. Quadlock makes it easy to keep my essentials charged, secure, and in reach. Recently, I've been using the handlebar mount for my phone alongside the new Action Cam mount. The Action Cam mount takes away the fuss of tightening screws and gives you that simple quad lock quarter turn, making installation and removal of your Action Cam quick and easy. On my last adventure ride across Vietnam, I even crashed the bike, and a quad lock mount kept my phone secure. Quadlock's vibrating dampener is a must-have with smartphone applications to protect your camera's internals from harmful vibrations. Quadlock is designed for any day, any adventure. Go to quadlockcase.com to find your specific application, or use the 360 kit builder to discover how interchangeable all these mounts can be. And use the code GYPSYGANG for 10% off your purchase and elevate your next adventure with Quadlock.
I met a gypsy.
Yeah, I'm good, yeah.
Testing, 1, 2, 3. I seem very quiet. Testing.
I can turn you up a little bit.
Testing.
Is that yours?
I don't know how it is on your end.
Is that going up more?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I think.
Is that all right?
Yeah.
Good.
I think so.
Do you
Testing.
want more?
Low energy. High energy. Oh, that's good.
Brett Tippie is joining us for Gypsy Tales, and frothing for this one, mate. You're in town. You're in the hood for a little bit. You got a documentary project coming out with YT that's going on tonight, and then hosting a ride at the dog park trail tomorrow. So we thought we'd get you in the studio. I saw you a bunch at Rampage, but we didn't get to catch up. So this is good an excuse as any to catch up, mate.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, thank you for having me on the show, and happy to be down here in California.
Yeah.
YT Industries has a mini documentary premiering tonight at the YT Mill in San Clemente. Kind of about my life story, and also riding with Marcus Flossman, the founder and CEO of YT.
Yeah.
Riding in BC after Crankworks.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Have you spent much time here, I'm sure?
I've come down several times, and I've been to the YT Mill. I was here for the opening. Yeah. And then I've been there a couple times since, just brief visits, and I've ridden down here with Richie Schley and Hans Ray.
Yeah.
In Laguna, riding some of the techie, gnarly stuff there. And yeah, it's always been a good time in California for sure.
It is cool here. We just moved to San Clemente, so we're now dog park locals.
Right.
So I've got the Decoy, and I've just been in there shredding as much as I can. So
isn't that a fun bike?
Dude, it's great. Yeah, I mean, for me, it's perfect because I still ride moto. I do Jiu Jitsu, so I've just got other things. Like, I'm not just a mountain biker.
Jiu Jitsu. Oh wow, my daughter takes Jiu Jitsu.
Oh really?
Yeah, I watch MMA.
How long has she been doing it for?
2 years.
Sick.
Yeah.
Nice.
Do you know what a black belt's favorite drink is?
What?
Water!
Oh, zinging on the dad jokes. I love that.
Why don't MMA fighters have sex the night before they fight?
Why?
Because they don't like each other. Might as well throw some zingers in there right away.
I love it. So she likes it though, obviously.
Yeah, she likes it. Yeah. She's into it. She's rad. She's a little mountain biker.
Yeah.
She's got a dirt bike and an e-bike, and down. She got 4th in the Canadian Nationals. And
no way.
She rode some steep lines and Nothing's for Free.
Yeah. That's where I saw. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I thought it'd be good to get her into jiu-jitsu, and one of her buddies is into it, so she does it. And Yeah, it was pretty cool. She was actually at school in high school. She's in grade 11. And when she was in grade 10, she was walking down the hall in between classes on her phone. And the biggest kid in school walks by and takes her phone from her hand and keeps walking. And she's like, turns around, runs after him, leaps up in the air beside him, hooks him around the neck on her way by, lands on her feet, throws him over her hip, has her forearm across his throat, takes her phone back, and is like, I don't think so.
No way.
Walked away with her phone, and he was laying there on his back, and then she knew the two kids that were at the locker, and he was laying there on the ground going,
what the fuck?
How did she do that?
Yeah. Dude, I think my wife does it as well. It's actually how we met. And I think it's so good for women to learn to do. Like, I mean, on a bunch of different levels, there's obviously such like a big strength difference between men and women. But I feel like in a self-defense scenario, if you're a guy that's going to try and attack a woman, the likelihood of you wanting to fuck with a chick that even seems remotely like she knows what she's doing, just the optics of actually like taking a stance and looking like you're prepared to deal with the situation is going to do so much for like diffusing whatever it is that's going on. And then especially if you, I mean, as like gnarly as it is to say, but if you're in a position where you're about to be like assaulted as a woman, that's literally the position that you're in class every single day.
Right.
And
you've dealt with it.
Yeah. So my daughters, if I have daughters, will 100% be doing it. And it's also just so much fun every single day.
And it gives you confidence just in your regular life and knowing that you can, rip someone's arm off and beat them with it, or wrap it around their neck. It just gives you confidence in life. I think that's a really good thing.
Yeah.
I took Shotokan karate when I was in high school.
Yeah.
And just the drills that we did really helped me with mental focus and whatnot. And just helps you in everything.
I think that there's a thing about proprioception too, like knowing where your limbs are in space. Like I know that in my daily life, like I've done martial arts like pretty much my whole life, but I notice especially with Jiu Jitsu that whenever I'm just doing like little things, like even it's a stupid example, but like we got like my bikes are all locked up in my shed and we were working on my bikes the other night and I'm stepping over this lock. And you just know exactly where you are in space at any time. And that's just, I don't know that that's a skill that people have like super refined in their life. So there's just like some little things that you can kind of...
foot coordination and whatnot.
And I think like learning something off another person because you're having to watch a person do the thing from third person and then do it first person. I also think that like kind of trains something in your brain.
Biokinetic training.
Yeah, for sure.
I do the same thing with Frisbee. I play a lot of Frisbee.
Really?
And then after every night ride we do, me and my friends.
So you are a golden retriever.
Yeah, totally. Did you hear about the guy that went in to the psychiatrist?
No.
And he said to the doctor, I keep having this feeling that I'm a golden retriever. And the doctor's like, really? And he's like, yeah. And he goes, oh, wow, okay, let's talk about it. Lie down on the couch. And the guy says, I'm all out on the couch.
How many of them have you got, you reckon?
This other guy goes into the doctor, to the psychiatrist, and he says, I keep having this feeling that I'm a golden retriever. And the doctor's like, another one, really? And he's like, yeah. And he goes, okay, let's talk about it. Lie down on the couch. So the guy lies down on the couch, and he goes, how's your day? And he says, rough. That was bad. I know, but I couldn't help it.
Oh, that's so good.
No, I was just saying that I do the same thing with the Frisbee for Jedi training, and that I do a lot of night riding.
Yeah.
I'm a dad, and I'm busy sometimes. I don't always have time to get out for a ride, so I use night riders, really bright lights, and then we'll finish the night ride, and then we play Frisbee, and I have a Frisbee with a light on it.
Yeah,
and I put dog collars, glow-in-the-dark dog collars on everybody so you can see where everyone is in the dark. But it's so funny because this Frisbee coming in, you can see it, it's lit, but you don't know where your hand is.
Yeah.
And so you learn where your hand is, otherwise you're going to catch it in the teeth,
Yeah.
And it's my secret Jedi training that I do is night Frisbee.
It's weird the things that can train your body and mind to get the connection because it's not just a given thing, right? Like there's definitely levels to that game.
Right. And you do things and you get good at certain things. If you ride moto a lot, you get good riding motorbikes. If you mountain bike a lot, you get good riding mountain bike. But the cross training helps you in those things that you're specifically trained in.
Yeah.
With that little bit of extra oomph from different sports and different activities.
I've also noticed when I crash, I always seem to be able to roll like so much better.
Just fuse the energy.
Yeah, you just know because you're kind of doing so much of that when you
Hitting the mats.
when you train. Yeah. So it's a crazy good skill to have, I think.
And it's really helpful that while you're crashing, you remain cognizant of what's going on and where your limbs are to get a roll in, or if there's a rock there, you might want to bounce before you do the roll or do a dive to get over that rooty section, or, you know, take it like a man before the rocky section or whatever. And I think it really helps with crashing. And it's a skill to be able to be a good crasher that can help you become a better rider, knowing that you're going to be able to deal with it if things do go wrong.
Yeah. I'm still very crash avoidant though. I go really slow, just take it real easy. Just don't like the idea of hitting the ground.
Don't want to hit
Some
the ground.
people are just so cool with it, eh?
Yeah, I was used to be that guy. I grew up playing football in high school and whatnot, and I didn't mind hitting trees because, you know, I'm used to running into a 200-pound linebacker. Yeah. And, you know, I would do things like before the season would start, I would take my helmet and shoulder pads and I would run into the tree in my backyard, because the first 5 days of practice, your neck is so sore. Because back in the day, we go head to head. It's called spearing now, but back then it was head to head, and people didn't really know about concussions so much. And so my neck would be so sore, and everyone's neck would be so stiff for the first week. So I would go a week ahead and start running into my tree in the backyard with my helmet and shoulder pads, and my neck would be all sore, and then it would kind of work itself out. So by the time first day of practice,
you were ready.
I was ready to knock heads and kick the shit out of people. And it's one of my secret little things at the beginning of every season.
That's so wild.
So I go mountain biking and like hitting a tree. I don't care. I've run into trees head on for years. It's okay. I don't mind hitting that tree. I'm going to go for it.
Was that in Canada that you played football?
Yeah. I played for the Kamloops Red Devils, and we won 2 BC championships, AA, the top league.
Wow.
And we beat the big Vancouver team, the private schools that had like 5,000 kids in a school, and we had like
so you were just
800
mongrels.
Kids. We were like tough, you know, country kids.
Yeah.
And we had really, really gnarly practices with like just full head-to-head contact, and it's just the games were easy after our practices, and it's where I learned a lot of my
just toughness.
a lot of toughness,
and
desire, and will to win, and kick ass and make memories that you can't go back and change. You know, I learned that you got to do something now because you're going to remember it forever, and you can't go back and change it. So, you know, do it the way you want to remember it.
Football is a very good teacher. Like, we had a different version of football. Like, we played rugby league in Australia, and we played it very seriously.
A barbarians game played by gentlemen.
Yeah, dude, it was gnarly. Like, back in the day, and we played until we were 16. My brother and I, he's a couple years younger. Man, some of the lessons I had, like, still carry to this day, and just losses. Right. Like, really dealing. Like, we had one season, I think it was my under 16 season. So you kind of like, you feel like a man at that point, like as a 16-year-old, like you're almost seniors in high school or whatever. We went undefeated all season, and then we lost in the semi-final.
And you probably learned more from that.
Oh, mate, I will never forget that.
Right.
Never forget the sadness, like that, the heart-wrenching sadness.
Agony of defeat.
Dude, that was the most fucking visceral thing.
Yeah.
And I just never like... And we just fully thought we were the shit. Yeah. Like, all of us knew we were going to win. We knew, and I actually fucked up. I let a try go through. Like, a dude just ran straight over the top of me. Just missed a tackle. Like, it was the worst.
And how much did you lose by? Was that?
No, it wasn't. We didn't lose by one score, thankfully.
3 points for a try, isn't it?
4.
4 points.
And then 2 points for a conversion.
For a conversion, right.
Yeah. But I just fucking got steamrolled, bro.
Oh, my God.
I think we lost by 2 tries, though.
I had a moment in the Okanagan Rugby Championships where I normally played a break, and I was playing fullback.
Yeah.
And their star player broke out, and it was triple overtime. And he was fast. He's coming straight at me. I'm the last dude, and
he's all back there by yourself.
All by myself. And I could see it in my mind, like, if I let this guy score, I'm going to lose the game. I'm going to be like scapegoat.
Yeah.
It's just going to make my whole high school career go down. And he's running at me. And I kind of did a stagger step with my feet. I was like, "Grrr," and then he faked that way and went that way. And I went that way. And so I actually got the tackle and brought him down, and everyone showed up. And then there was like a ruck, and then it went on. And then our star player, Jimmy White, scored, and we won the Okanagan Championships. But the pressure of that one moment could have been crushing. So yeah, I feel sorry for you in that situation.
Man, but it's like such good lessons.
It's such good lessons.
You know?
And then
you just never
because you guys
forget
go
that
cocky
shit.
and you were undefeated, and then that happened, you know, and it reminds me of a saying that my dad always used to tell me and my brother Jake: when you win, say little. No, it's the other way around. When you lose, say little. When you win, say less.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's wild. And then it reminds me of another lesson that my grandpa taught me. I was talking about, I had the most tackles for our team, and I was like leading the league in tackles, and I was telling my grandpa about it, and I was bragging to him. And he was like, Brett, you're bragging. I go, it's not bragging, it's true. Yeah. And he goes, Brett, you know when you know you're good? And I'm like, no, Grandpa, how do you know you're good? He goes, when you're good, other people tell you you're good. You never have to say that you're good. Yeah. And I was like, right, okay. Thanks, Grandpa. And he's like,
that's maybe like one of the most important lessons to learn as a kid.
Yeah.
Very hard though.
Yeah, hard to be
humble. You're so starved for validation
at that point,
especially as like a young boy, because you always think you're a young man,
right?
All the time.
And you
when
always
you're
will
6,
be.
You're a man.
Yeah,
you know, and you're just like, they don't know that I'm way smarter than I'm not just a normal 6-year-old. You know, like you're just so hunting for validation.
And you need that. You need that confidence to be able to succeed. You need to be like, I am the man.
Yeah.
And you need that. But if you're saying you're the man, you know, to everyone, then you're probably not the man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the majority of like the backgrounds up there? Because so you're Native American background?
I'm half. I'm Métis. And so my people came from the Red River settlement, and I am Dene and a bit of Cree. Yeah. Mixed with white, with Estonian and some German and some Scottish. And so I'm built for winter, and I'm built to party.
yeah. Dude, that's a mix right there.
Totally.
Have you ever read Empire of the Summer Moon?
I have not.
Oh, mate, you got to read that. I got very into like Native American history. Okay. When like kind of at the start of the year. Yeah. And dude, I bought this book just randomly, saw it on the shelf. Unbelievable, dude. It's basically the last kind of stand of like the Comanches. It sort of documents the whole the founding, like the frontiermen's, I guess, history with Native Americans. But it documents, I don't know how to say the guy's name, but Quinwa Parker. He was like the last Comanche chief. Right. And then his mum, Cynthia Parker, was basically like, she lived with the tribe. She was taken as like a 3-year-old girl. They had all these rescue missions from Texas to try and get her back. But by the time they found her, she was like, I ain't fucking leaving. Like, I'm one of these guys now. Yeah. She had kids, and then her son was like the last leader of the Comanches that ended up basically like, we're done. Like, the war's over. Right. But yeah, fascinating history. Wow, fascinating history.
She was living the Dances with Wolves.
Literally.
Life.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Crazy, like a crazy
Our people live with the planet. Yep. And they're very athletic, outdoorsy people. Yeah. And I feel that in my job and my passions. I love being outdoors, and that's where I feel one with the world. And I think it's just from thousands of years of DNA built into me to be outdoors.
It has to. That stuff can't leave you.
Right. Yeah. It's just, I don't know. I'm proud to be, half Native and are Indigenous. And my uncles are all super cool, very sporty. The family reunions are just full of like lawn darts and volleyball and softball and dancing and singing and playing music and good eating, and they're awesome, and they're all funny. Super funny. And they're tough. They're nice, but they're tough.
Yeah. It's almost a shame that it isn't celebrated more. Like, I feel like race is such like a divisive thing these days, and it's just not celebrated in the way that it should be celebrated. I think, like, obviously that almost every Indigenous
Unless you go to Germany. I've been to some nightclubs in Germany with Tarek Rassouli, the P1 club, and I'm walking around, and he used to work there, so he knew everybody, but he would introduce me to these 5'10" master race, tall blondes, and they would find out that I'm Native American from Canada, and they're like, oh, really? And I had to tell them stories about the clean lakes and rivers and beautiful trees, and they weren't interested in some dude from Stuttgart with a flat there and a house here and 4 Porsches. They wanted
to talk to the Indian.
Yeah, totally. It was awesome.
Tell me your secrets.
And I'm just loving it, just like, wow, this is great.
But I mean, that's how it is in Australia. Like, we grew up in an Aboriginal area, and it's just like, man, it was the coolest shit in the world to see, like the way that like the uncles and the granddads and like the way that they lived and ate and still made shit, and then it always just got turned, like, especially politically, into such like it was like a negative talking point, and obviously there's so much negative history that it's like, yeah, I wasn't there for that. Let's like, tell me the good shit, you know, like what's the good shit that's still going on? You know what I mean? Like, I can't really fix that.
Right.
But it's like, there's there's so much cool shit still.
Totally.
And
like my grandmother was taken as a child, from her family and put into a residential school.
Yeah.
And she never saw her family again. And she was like 6 years old, 7 years old. And, she saw her sister once from across the street with another group, and she wasn't allowed to go talk to her. And then she never saw her family again. And, the government and the RCMP and whatnot at the time were trying to disband the native ways and get everyone assimilated into the white man ways. And she was raised to be a nun, and she was going to be a nun, but then she fell in love with my grandfather, John Balsley, who delivered mail up to the Arctic Circle in the summer with a canoe and in the winter with a dog sled team.
No way.
And he would deliver, mail and supplies of like, very important focused items, but mostly mail. And she fell in love with him, and then she had like, 12 kids. My mom was one, and
that's incredible. That's a wild
it's part of our history
story.
that a lot of people are not proud of. But it helped form our little family, and we've lost a bunch of that family tree and the ways and whatnot. But it happened, and it's a blight on our history.
Yeah,
and people try and make reparations since, but it was nasty.
The world was just a fucked up place. Like,
Yeah,
it was such a wild place to exist.
Oh, totally. In 1492, the Native Americans discovered Christopher Columbus lost at sea.
Really? That went over my head.
Think about it. In 1492, the Native Americans discovered Christopher Columbus lost at sea.
Yeah, right.
Because he was looking for the West Indies, and he found North America by accident.
Yes.
He was lost. He didn't discover North America. He happened to land there.
Yeah, happened upon it. Yeah, that's why they're called Indians, because he literally thought he was going to India.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, it's so wild, eh? And I was reading this book. Obviously, it all takes place in Texas, and I remember I read probably a week of it, and then I went. My wife's like, "How's that book you're reading?" Because I just was super into it. I'm like, it just fully explains Texas.
Right.
Like, modern day Texas, those people, why they think the way they do, everything that they do, I know why. Because there was...
You can always tell someone from Texas, but not much. I lived in Texas, actually, in 1976. I spent grade 3 there. My dad went down to an art school.
Yeah, right.
And he was a teacher all his career, but he took 1 year off, and he took the specialty art school. That was in Houston, and my mom was a nurse, so she could work anywhere. And I was this little Canadian kid living in Southeast Texas. It was cool.
That's a big change.
Yeah, and then we went back to Canada and moved back to the bush, and then eventually settled in Kamloops.
Yeah,
and I lived there ever since.
I
was raised there, anyways.
You see, there was the frontier was this is as far west as we've gone. So they started in New York and on the East Coast basically, and then it was just horse and cart, set up shop, And then you get a few more people that are like, oh, we need more land, so let's just keep going and keep going and keep going. And they basically just got to Texas and it fucking stopped because of Comanche Indians.
Right.
And they had like a 40, 50-year battle with the Comanches and they just could not go any further because if you did, you would get fucked up.
You're going to die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like
they're tough.
That whole Texas attitude and that the whole culture from there and like everyone owns a gun. Why? Because you needed to own a gun, you know. So like right now you could be from the Bay Area and be like, I don't know why people in Texas need guns. It's like, well, if you just go back to this guy's dad and this guy's dad and this guy's dad and this guy's dad.
They're dealing with Comanches.
Yeah. And it was fucking hectic.
Yeah, for sure.
So, you know, it's pretty cool when you kind of go back. At least you get a perspective of like, oh, that's what was going on.
That's why. My wife actually did a bunch of research on my background and family tree and whatnot, and she pulled out some early photographs of some of my great-grandparents and some of my ancestors. And these black and white photos of these dudes, they look so hard. Oh. They're just looking at the camera, and they got like striated muscle fibers in their jaw muscles and their necks. They're just shredded and rips, and they got veins, and they're just like, they're just looking at the camera like...
staunch.
Like... gnarly dudes that live out in the minus 40.
Yeah.
And you know, like some of my ancestors, they would kill polar bears with spears. Like a 10-foot polar bear, and they would get up too close to it and make it rear up on its hind legs. And then when it came down to get you, they'd
just
plant
down
the
on the
end of the spear and they'd aim it at the heart.
Oh.
And like, those are gnarly dudes.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
And why'd they do that?
So they can eat.
No other choice.
So they can live.
Yeah, no other choice.
Yeah, no other choice.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's people in the past were so tough and so gnarly. We got it so good. We're in this pampered world with all the amenities. It's
and everyone thinks that they would have done things differently.
Right.
You know, there's this moral high ground. Like, I'm not like that.
Yeah.
You get dragged behind a horse for 90 miles. Like, it's probably going to change your mind about like what you need to do to survive. But yeah, that DNA though, like, has to live on in you, bro.
Yeah,
like there'd be some fucking gnarly shit going on in there.
Totally.
And you'd see it on a mountain bike, on a snowboard, when you're playing football. Like, that stuff's got to rear its head, you know.
It's in there. That's what we're made out of, and that's what I'm made out of, and I'm proud to have those genes in my body and whatnot.
Yeah, no, it's pretty cool. So,
did you know that diarrhea is hereditary?
Runs in your genes.
Runs in your genes. Did you hear about Diarrhea Awareness Week?
No.
It starts on Monday and runs till Friday.
How do you have so many of these?
I don't know.
You would have been a really good taxi driver.
Yeah, for sure.
You know,
yeah.
like
I'd get all the tips.
Yeah, just picking up everyone, just jokes.
I've always wanted to be a comedian, but they wouldn't take me seriously. I actually went to the Improv.
Really?
But they told me I had to add a letter E to the end and improve. Again, no, that's Mitch Hedberg joke.
Have you ever done any like stand-up or anything like that?
You know what? I've hosted a lot of events.
Yeah.
And so I'm on the mic all the time, but all the Canada Cup downhills and BC Cup downhills. And
you do all the pink bike stuff.
I've done a lot of pink bike stuff and a lot of crank work stuff. And, you know, I've done the BMX World Cup Championships. I've done some Red Bull rally car race. I've done a bunch of stuff, and I'm always trying to keep the comedian down and be professional. I can't help it. I pop out the odd joke, you know. It's my deal. I like making people laugh and making people happy.
I think that's probably why people love you too, you know.
I hope so. Yeah. You know what? I'm happy when other people are happy. So it's a selfish thing, really. I make them happy, so I'm happy. Yeah. It's just kind of like just have everyone have a good time and whatnot.
Well, and moving around so much too. I think when you're a kid. And you got to like get new friends. You got to get new friends quickly. It's sort of like it's almost like a survival mechanism for a young kid that has to move around.
Yeah, totally. It's like an icebreaker. And, you know, I would do that, make people laugh and feel natural and comfortable. But like I would move, like up until 1977, I moved to a different place every year. And I would get to this new place. And if the kid was jumping a garbage can on his bike, I would do 2 garbage cans.
Yeah.
And if they were doing 2, I would do 3. If they did 3, I would do 4. So that I was in with the cool crowd, you know, and you're accepted and like, oh, this new guy's pretty cool, and crack some jokes and you're kind of in, right? So
yeah. So it's just a full survival thing as a kid.
totally. Because I didn't have a spear, and
Yeah,
I didn't want to kill anybody.
That was super frowned upon.
Yeah, exactly.
in grade school. And it makes sense with like sport too. You know,
Yeah.
that's such a natural language for kids to understand. Like, oh, this guy's good at this shit. Like, he's cool.
Yeah, totally. And it helps you assimilate, get into the scene, and make friends. And why not? Who doesn't want to, like, meet people and be accepted and whatnot?
Yeah, yeah.
Part of life.
So you moved to Kamloops, and then that's where all of the, I guess, like your real sporting life kind of starts.
I've done a lot of sports up until then. Everywhere I went, my parents had me in baseball. I took archery. I did a little bit of boxing at the Y. I did some Shotokan karate. I did like rugby and football there in Kamloops. But that's when I, learned that I'm into sports hardcore. My dad was like a school teacher, and he was a pretty sporty dude, but he was also very artistic. He did paintings, and he played music, and he sang, and he wanted me to be an intellectual because he read a lot of books and was a very smart man, and wanted me to play music. And I tried all these different instruments, and I just couldn't do it. I was made to hit people and tackle people and run and jump, and that's who I was. Yeah. And he finally came to terms with that, and pushed me more into sport. Not pushed me, but helped me and gave me opportunities to do sports, and that's what I gravitated to. And I learned that I was really good at stuff that was dangerous because I had a good focus and I could keep clear. My mom was a delivery room nurse, so she had a very high level of focus at delivering babies, life and death. And when it was life and death situations, I had learned from my parents how to react and not to react. And a bunch of my friends are crazy in Kamloops growing up, and so I learned that I was good at stuff that was dangerous because I could keep calm under pressure, and I could just put the blinders on and just visualize what I wanted to do, and then I would do it. And that really helps in the sports that I ended up doing.
So that's like a natural talent of yours, you think that you had?
I think so, yeah. And, I would do things to help my focus in dangerous situations. Actually, I'll tell you what I used to do when I used to race World Cup snowboarding is before the season would start and I'd go to the first races in Europe, I used to go to this bridge called the Peterson Creek Bridge in Kamloops, which is above a 300-foot gulch. There's no water down there. It's just earth. And I would climb over the railing in the middle of the night, and there's a little piece of concrete about this wide. And I would get out there and I'd balance, and my heart rate would be going up. It's death if you fall. And I would get down into my snowboard tuck, and I would like visualize the first courses of the year. Roller, fadeaway left, steep pitch, and I would just go through these courses, and I would biofeedback and calm my heart rate while I was balancing on the edge of this piece of concrete. And I would let go of the railing, and I was balancing there. And when I'd get into the start gate at those first races, I'd be like,
yeah.
And I would get into the zone, and then the beeping would go, the start, doot, 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 and I'd pull out, and I was like calm and ready to rock, but I wouldn't blow it by being, had whiskey throttle.
Yeah.
And I actually did that every season. And then at one time, one of my buddies said, hey, let's go do that thing you do. Got a friend of mine, Craig Wilson, who was a gnarly dude. And so I go, yeah, okay, cool. So we called over the railing. I'm in my snowboard tuck position, and I look over. He's snowboarding on the edge of this little concrete balancing. And then I look again, and he's hanging off the 300-foot bridge by his hands. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing? And he goes, go for it. It's a rush. And I'm like, okay. And so I hang off the bridge by my hands, and then I had to top him, Kamloops, and so I waved at him with one hand, both hands back on the bridge. He climbs up, he sticks his leg through the railing of the bridge, and he goes, I dare you to hang off my leg. I'm like, okay. So I grabbed his leg, and I released the bridge. I'm swinging off of his leg off the 300-foot bridge, and then I was like, okay, I'm going for it. This is a moment. And I rolled up his pant leg, and I put it in my teeth from molar to molar all the way around. And I was testing the strength of my jaw, and I was like, yeah, I got it. And there was a band called Soundgarden that was really popular back then with a song called Jesus Christ Pose. And then I did a tuck no-hander hanging by his pant leg from my teeth, and I just went like this. Just for a second. But for a second, I was hanging off my buddy's pant leg off a 300-foot bridge. And then I climbed up, and we all high-fived and went back home. But that was probably the craziest thing I've ever done.
That's fucking mental.
And then actually, the gnarlier thing that I did that was gnarlier than that was I told my mom about it 3 months later.
Oh yeah,
And
that is gnarly.
She came after me with the broom. Hit me with the broom.
Yeah. That is gnarly. What's the name of that bridge?
The Peterson Creek Bridge.
Peterson Creek Bridge. I want to see this motherfucker.
Yeah, it's crazy. So, I've met people since who are like, oh, yeah, right.
Oh, bro.
Sure you did. Oh, yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Get fucked.
Yeah. So, yeah, I hung off that bridge by my buddy's pant leg.
Oh, that's gnarly, dude.
Yeah.
That's like some base jumping shit.
Right. Anyways, that's like the nucleus of riding in Kamloops. There's trails that are all rides through there. And there's a chute, there's a couloir. I don't know if there's a picture of the chute that we tried to ride all through the 80s. And it's like 50 degrees and no one could ever make it. And then my buddy Craig Olson made it through the S turns and then he rode it for a bit and then laid it out on the bottom. And then I actually rode the S turns, rode to the bottom and rode out onto the single track in the walking trails down below. So I was the first person to ride that couloir. And that comes from mental focus, from doing things like hanging off it by my teeth.
What made you know that mental focus was a thing at that young of an age?
I don't know. I would do dares all the time. Like for an adrenaline rush, I would like be in the backseat of my parents' car and I'd have my favorite action figure and I would like hold it out the window and I would have the wind press my favorite toy against my hand. And if I dropped it, it's gone.
Yeah.
And I would like hold it against the wind and just focus on keeping the angle right, and I would pull it back in, and I'd be like, had got this adrenaline rush.
Yeah.
But you had to focus to not lose your favorite toy. Little things like that I did as a young kid, and
that's super interesting.
yeah, just
That's just in your brain.
right. It just I don't know. I wanted to test myself, and I wanted to succeed, and you didn't get those adrenaline rushes unless you rode your bike down a hill, or could lose your favorite toy as a kid or whatever and stuff. So yeah, I did weird things like that all the time.
It's funny. I've had ADD my whole life, and the thing with that is like chemically, what's happening in your brain is you just don't get rewarded for things in the same way as like a quote unquote normal person does, right? And I've literally just got medication for it because I'm like, man, I'm just struggling. Like I love my life. I'm fucking so pumped on all of these things, but there's like this little area of my life where I just can't fucking get it together, Right. And it's like office work, book work, all the just some days like this is a fantastic job, but some days I have to just lock myself in an office for 8 hours at a time. And then that's where you're just like, how are you like so incapable of just doing the most simple things, right? And then you have medication, and then you can literally feel your brain change to be rewarded for a completely different thing that you never get rewarded for. Like you'll switch, like for me, I switch tasks so much. I'm like, get 4 lines into that email. And then I'm like, oh, fuck, I need to send another email. You got all these things, but you're not actually doing anything, right?
Right.
And then you add a chemical to your brain, and then you switch tasks, and then your brain, there's a voice in your head that's like, no, go finish that. It'll feel good. And you're like, whoa. The way that the chemicals are going around in your brain naturally, because there's obviously like hundreds of chemicals that are in there, no matter what you've got going on.
Yeah, we're bioelectrical.
But everyone's brain is different.
Right.
And everyone's getting these different rewards for these different things. And I guess it's not until you like change that default state that you can even realize what your default state is, in a sense.
Yeah.
And it's like very interesting. So like when I hear that in my head, I'm like, his brain is being rewarded for a very strange, unique thing that maybe not a lot of other, like maybe a lot of people can't relate to that, right? But it's like that one thing is what makes you very unique in all of these other areas of your life.
That's
you know what I mean?
Makes a person tick or a different person tick.
Yeah. And you can just see like, as a kid, for whatever reason, there was a built-in reward system for
taking risks,
adrenaline and risks, and it was a feedback loop.
Yeah.
You know, and there was like negative consequences, positive consequences. And you figured out, it's almost like you just figured out how to hack your own brain. And then you just follow that path along through life. And it ends up creating this guy, you know.
Totally. Yeah. No, I've always loved dangerous, cool things, you know, where things get real. Like taste death, live life.
Yeah.
I think like the French have said, you know, and, you know, I don't know. I used to joke, and I put it on my Facebook when I first made a Facebook profile. I live on the edge of town. But there's a lot of people like that, and you have to be like that way in a certain amount to be successful in these sports.
Yeah.
To risk yourself to do something cool.
Yeah.
Because if it was easy, everyone would do it.
Yeah.
And, you know, at certain times I've been on top of a gnarly move or a big cliff drop or something, and I was kind of like, you know, oh, this is kind of risky. I could get hurt here. And then you have to have that switch of, fuck it. I'm doing it. I don't care what happens. I think I can do it. I'm going for it, but I don't care what happens. Like, I'm ready. I don't care what happens. I'm ready to take the risk of what can happen.
I want to see what's on the other side.
Yeah. And you take that risk to do it, you know? And I've had mental games with myself where, say, I was in Turkey filming for Kranked 3 with Wade Simmons and Richie Slay, and Christian Bejen's filming, and I was ready to do this drop. It was like, you know, 15, 18 feet, pretty big for the day. And I'm ready to do it, and then a cloud came. And he's like, wait, the light, the little French-Canadian filmmaker.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh. And then, so I'm waiting, and I could see it. It was all good. I'm ready to go. And then the cloud, you know, was taking its time, and I'm sitting there, and I kind of chill out for 5-10 minutes, and he goes, oh, here comes the light. Okay, we got good light. Everyone ready? Yeah, okay, Tippie, go. And I'm like, I kind of lost the moment.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like, so I've done things like pretended that there's a grizzly bear behind me.
Yeah.
Or a giant polar bear. It's going to eat me. The only way out of there is off this cliff. Or I've you know, imagined like a rock concert, and there's like 50,000 people at the bottom going, Tippie. And I'm like, all right, yeah, I got this for this. Let's do this, guys. You know, or I've imagined my Hollywood girlfriend at the bottom, sitting at the bottom going, come here, big boy. And I'm like, oh, I'll be right there. Woo! And then I'd send it off the cliff or do whatever mental trick I could do to make it happen.
Yeah.
Because we flew there. Everyone flew there.
Yeah.
You know, it's time to go. And if you lose the magic and if you lose the vision of doing it, you have to have a mental override to do it anyways.
Yeah.
And I would do it. But I'd say sometimes in sports and in mountain biking, I kind of felt pressured to do gnarly stuff all the time. Like I didn't ever want to back down, and I wouldn't back down. I would send it whether I knew I could do it or not. And it kind of took the fun out of it because I would go to these places going, okay, I don't know what they're going to take me to or what we're going to find, but I know I'm going for it.
Yeah, you end up just being meat.
Yeah, I felt like a dancing monkey, you know?
Yeah.
And at one point, I had to have the confidence to say, I'll do it if I feel like it, and if I don't, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
But early in my career, I was like, I'm doing everything. And, you know, I'm riding with Wade Simmons, who's crazy. He's so talented and so good, and he's kind of like that. But I don't know what's in his brain, but he's like, he doesn't see the dangers. He just only sees the positive.
Yeah.
And he's so good. And, you know, Richie got to a point where he was like doing gnarly stuff, and I knew they were going to do it. And if they're going to do it, I was going to have to do it. Yeah. And I felt trapped into being into hucking my meat no matter what. Yeah. And it kind of took the joy out of it for a little while, but then at one point I went, you know what? I'm going to do it if I feel like it, and if I don't, I have no problem. I got nothing left to prove. That's how I feel now. Like, and plus I'm old, and I don't want to. I have a wife and kids, and I that has definitely toned me down. And plus I'm 55 years old. You know, and when you're young, you're trying to meet a mate, and you know, I wanted to be a better dude than the next dude, so that I could hang out with hotter babes, you know, and travel the world and get sponsored. I was trying to do it, and you're trying to climb.
Yeah, you're trying to make it.
You're trying to make it, and so you're hungry.
Yeah.
And you know, when you're older and you've had a career, you're kind of like, I don't need to do that. But if you do feel like doing it, you're doing it. So I pick and choose my moments, you know, and have for a while now of pulling the trigger when I feel it, when I see it. And some people are like, no, that's crazy. And you're like, no, I got this. Yeah. And then sometimes you've got people going, do it. And then you're like, no, I don't got this today. Yeah. And so you get more strength with more age and wisdom of when to pull the trigger and when not to pull the trigger, and it feels way better.
Yeah, and I think there's a process. There's a process that everyone, I think, has to go through to do a thing for a long time, where you have to be doing it for the right reasons. Like, there's a point where, so, okay, for example, right, you start this, 0 followers, 0 listeners, everything's at 0, and then it's exciting because you're like, it's always new and there's new people and what bigger guests can I get? But then there's a point where it's like it does flatten out, and then it just becomes a job. You're on episode 100, then you're on episode 200, then you're on episode 300, and it's the same. We're in the same studio doing the same thing, and you have to analyze why. What's the real reason why, and what am I actually doing this for? Because if it's for money, well, that comes and goes. If it's for fame, that comes and goes, and you can do it for all these unsustainable and unfulfilling reasons.
And those reasons change from different situations.
For sure.
I've thought about this before because people have asked me, why do you do that stuff? You know, is it for their feeling? Is it for the money? Is it for the fame and adulation? And we're like, why do you do it? And some people are like, I do it for the love of it. And someone's like, and people say different reasons. And I think to myself, I think people do things for a bunch of different reasons, and it's like a pie chart.
Yeah.
And it's like
they change it
60% for the feeling,
yeah.
20% for the money, 5% so that pretty girl that they like at the local moto store thinks they're cool, 5%, you know, because Jimmy wouldn't do it, you know, or whatever. There's different reasons why you do anything. Yeah. And I think it's a pie chart, and then they can grow and decrease in different value for different situations. But I don't think there is one reason why people do anything. There's a bunch of different reasons.
That's actually a very good point.
You know, it's
so. But I think there are wrong reasons to do things.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah,
and there are very unsustainable reasons to do things. And I think what you explained was you just started to find the right reasons to do the things. You know,
right? Yeah, totally.
And in the past, they're just the reasons are, I guess, maybe the right reasons at the time, but they're not sustainable.
But they change.
Yeah.
Right. You know, like I rode a line that Kenny Smith pioneered in Moab, and it's a steep rock, and it's
that really big. Yeah.
And I did that. I forget how many years ago, but 5 years ago or 6 years ago, 5 years ago. I think I did it when I turned 50. That was my I still got it move for that year. And Richie Slay and I both did it that day. And, you know, it's like 100 feet to your death if you fall. It's 100 feet to flat. Like, you're going to be wearing your 510s out your armpits for sure.
When you put it like that.
Right? And if you fall to the right, it's kind of crowned, so it's rounded. So the line is down the middle of that crown. And if you fall to the right, you're going to fall 70 feet. You're going to be fucked up.
Yeah.
For sure. And I was up there, and it was windy. And I had Ali DeLulu shooting photos, 2 cameras, arguably one of the best mountain bikers in the world. I think he's the best. He's like one of the top World Cup downhill photographers, one of the top freeride photographers. And he's like the only photographer to win the Deep Summer Crankworks photography showdown. He won the Whistler Ski and Snowboard Festival against like skateboard photographers and surf photographers. He was the first photographer to win a Red Bull Illum Award, creativity.
Yeah.
And he's one of the best photographers. So I knew he was going to get it. And he's my buddy. And we were there. And I was up top. And it was windy. And I was like getting buffeted around. I'm waiting for the wind to stop. The light was good. I had a trail bike. And I'm like, I'm here. I'm doing this. I think. Yes, I'm doing that. I hiked up and there was no other way down. So like, I'm doing this. But I'm like, I got kids. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. But I do want to do this. Why am I doing this? And I'm like, because I can, and it'll be rad. It'll be a 6 shot. I'll feel cool about it. And Kenny did it. I know it's doable. And so the wind wasn't stopping. So I was like, made the sign. He made the sign. He's good to go. It's good to go. I rolled the GoPro. And I had made it easy for myself because as you go down, it just rolls out of sight, and you don't see where it goes. You see the valley. And you know that if you get blown by the wind or you skid a little bit and you go off to the left, you're going to fall 100 feet or 70 feet. And so I didn't know exactly where to go. So I went down, I took a rock and I scratched a line. I walked down as far as I could with my 510s, to the point of truth where it gets really steep, and I scratched a line on the rock soil of where I exactly wanted to be. So on that last 30 feet, I'm like, as long as I'm on that line, I'm gonna live. And so then when I was running down, I'm like, using the Magura brakes, shameless plug, controllably to not skid and lose control. And then I saw the line where I wanted to be, and I'm like, oh, it's all good. And I got down to the moment of truth, and I let go of the brakes, so you don't flip over the bars and just let it roll. Took the speed. There's a crack you have to miss, and missed the crack, and wrote it out. And I got this.
Yeah,
let's right here.
we can look up the picture on there.
Right here.
Oh, that's so insane.
There, where's the camera?
That's so cool.
Oh, it's gone.
That's epic. Wait, go this way a tiny bit.
You okay?
Go that way a bit. No, like you.
Oh, me?
Yeah. We're migrating.
Okay.
That's mental, dude. Yeah, that's in here, eh?
Oh yeah, right. And so, like,
is it technically that hard to ride? Or is it just scary as fuck?
It's just scary because you're super exposed.
Yeah.
You know what?
I can see the crack.
There's a lot of things that aren't hard until you do them.
Yes.
Like they're hard mentally.
Yeah.
But once you do them, they're actually easy.
Yeah.
You brake a bit, you fan the brakes, you modulate, and then you let go when you need to, and then anything is easy if you just do it.
Yeah.
And once you finally do something, you're like, that wasn't so bad. But it is hard until you do it. Yeah. Sometimes. Anyway, so that one was one where I was like,
I completely agree. Like it's that is the thing. We went to Rampage, and that was the thing that impressed me the most. Is that you were talking about it before, the switch. And to watch those guys mentally go through that process. And I've been a mountain bike my whole life. I've been a motocross rider my whole life, BMX my whole life. And I very, very frequently get to that point and go, nah, I'm fucking good. Like, I don't need it.
Right.
And that's why my respect for the guys that can and do is just through the roof.
Oh, yeah.
Because that feeling is so confronting, and everything's
well, it's because we have millions of years of self-preservational instincts, built into our DNA. Yeah. And you have to be able to unlock that or close it off or whatever you need to do to be able to focus and stay loose enough to do it and fight those millions of years of self-preservational instincts.
Yeah.
And they got that. Those guys are superheroes. I competed in Rampage in, 20-something years ago. And it's a different story. Like, they're going way bigger. They're going way faster. It's just, everything gets built up. But, they're superheroes.
Can you believe where it's at now?
You know what? Like back then, I never would have imagined that they would be flipping off The Price is Right. Like that, if I saw that back then, I'd be like even now, I'm like, what the hell, And the Canyon Gap that Tom Ice did and T-Mac did, and like all that stuff. Like it's just mind blowing, and they're so good that they do it, and the ladies too doing what they did was absolutely amazing. Like those lines are gnarly. That mountain is gnarly.
Yeah, and
they are risking their lives, but they're doing it, and they're doing it controllably and put on a good show and getting a rush, and it's just amazing. It's, they're going so big and they're doing such wild tricks that most people can't comprehend it. I sometimes will hike around and I would see lines that I know that I would do, and I'm like, I'd do that, and then I'm like, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that either. I would never do that. And that blows me away because I grew up doing it.
Yeah. And like laying the foundation.
Yeah. You step on people's shoulders to get to the next level, and then you get a boost, and things just, you build up like a layer of paint, the armor to be able to do that, and you learn what works and doesn't work, and the bikes get better, and they're doing it, and there are a lot of guys and girls doing it, and it's so cool to see. And I just love the vibe of the riders supporting each other, and everyone's risking their shit, risking their spines, risking their craniums to take a risk to do something rad for whatever reason that they're doing it for, on that pie chart we're talking about.
Yeah.
But they are doing it for whatever reason they're doing it. And it's just humbling. And I love it. I love those guys and girls for pushing the sport and where it's at. And I get nothing but respect. It's cool. On the same side, in a way, was gnarlier back in the day when we did Rampage because, we would like kick a few stones out of the way and send it. And we didn't know to pack landings. Like we were just trying to free ride and we'd land in soft dirt.
Yeah.
And you'd go over the bars and then flip into a canyon and go into a rock or whatever. In a way, it was more dangerous back then because,
it was less calculated.
It was less calculated. They know that if they send it and they make it to the landing on that hardback dirt, they're going to roll away. We were like, go hit a bush, hit a tree. There were spectators on the course. Like it was kind of more dangerous, even though we weren't going as big and doing just wild tricks. It was still so new. We're trying to figure out. It was more dangerous in a way. You know what I mean? I'm not saying it was more dangerous, but it was.
No. It makes sense what you're saying.
More people got hurt more often back then because, we didn't know how to pack landings.
And it was, I guess, just less professional.
Yeah, like they're dialed now. They're dialed. They're good. They've been doing it for a long time. They've done it for a while. It's, that they know like the most likely they're going to do it until they do their actual run where they're flipping and twisting and doing all the tricks in the run to get as many points as they can. That, they know they can do that. We were going into the unknown of like, I don't know if this is possible, but I'm going for it. So it's a different mentality.
Dude, Bender is like Jesus, bro. That guy is so fucking gnarly. The level that he was at back then and the risk that he was taking, like obviously he's paying for it now, but bro, he pushed the sport. If you look at, like, everyone pushes the sport in their own way, right? But like the risk that he took in the time that he was doing it, like he had to have just progressed shit so far.
Yeah, he was nuts. Like he appeared when we had done up like Crank 3, Crank 4 was when he appeared for New World Disorder 1. And, myself and my buddies, we had done like 10-foot drops, 15-foot drops, 20-foot drops. I got up to a 25-foot drop.
Yeah.
Is the biggest thing I landed. I tried some 32-footers 4 times, but I never rode them out clean. But the biggest thing I stomped was 25 vertical feet down.
What was the hard part about like going from 25 to 32?
It was the landing. It was too soft.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I would have had a hard pack landing, I was centered on the bike. I had my vertical axis line dialed. I had the balls to do it. I was loose. I was like ready. And I just kept washing out the front wheel and kind of stopping. I was jumping into a sand pit.
Yeah.
So I couldn't stomp that 32. If I would have had pack landings, I think I would have, taken it up for there. So I had stomped up a 25-footer with a soft landing, and that was my limit. And then Bender came and did a 32-footer. And so he went like 7 feet bigger than me, and then he, just kept pushing. And I went to Kamloops with Richie, actually, and they were filming him for New World Disorder 1. And he had broke his bike, and I actually saved the day for the shoot because I lent him my Marazuki Monster Tees off of my RM9 for him to go do the jaw drop.
Yeah.
And he and I, stayed up late that night, blasting some bombers and talking, and we had this great conversation, and we became friends like right away. And I went out and looked at it, and I was like, it's too flat. It's too flat a landing, and it's too soft. It's too flat. And he's like, and then Derek Westerner's like, Tippie, he's doing things you don't know about yet. He's doing 1,000 push-ups a day. He's got this. And I'm like, I go, dude, I've been jumping off cliffs,
for
sandboarding,
a while. Yeah,
and a while, and I've done 25-footers. This is like a 45-footer. I think it's too flat. And he's like, no, you'll see. I'm like, okay. So I actually filmed the footage for New World Disorder. One of the camera shots is my angle with my little Sony Hi8 camera, and you can hear my voice. Okay, here he goes. 3, 2, 1. Boom! And he eye-slided. He got flipped off the bike, and they didn't clear the trees out very wide. They just assumed he was going to make it, and he hit his head on the base of a tree where the tree grew out of the ground, and somehow it had a little deformity, and it grew like this, and then it grew up, and there was like an elbow, and he hit his head, I think it was a Fox motocross helmet, right at the elbow of that tree, and destroyed his helmet. And I was down there holding his head. He was out cold, holding his head still so it wouldn't twist in case there was any kind of spinal damage for 45 minutes till the ambulance showed up and could get across the river to get there. And my arms are cramping, and I'm trying to like hold to be as still as I could. And He came back and did it 3 more times the next summer. And then he finally said, it's too flat. And I was like, that's what I said. But he was trying to do like a 40, 45-foot drop. People were telling me, it's 50 feet. No, it's not 50 feet. We've measured it. It's like a 45-foot drop, 40, 45, depending on how fast you go. And so that was with my forks. I still have them. They work perfect.
No way.
They still squish super nice. And then when Brage Vestovic sent it for Nothing's for Free, I've saved the day again 3 times that shoot.
No way.
And I'll tell you how I did it. We hiked up there, had a cameraman everywhere, ready to go. And Brage was like squeezing his tires, and he's like, I think I need more air. And I filled his tires. They felt Rampage hard. I'm like, really? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, okay. Derek had a pump. We're the last ones up on the hill. Everything's ready to go. He's pumping up his tire. The pump breaks. Lets the air out of his tire. And he's like, and I could see him and Derek look at each other like, we're fucked, you know? And they're just like, and their body English just slumped like,
yeah, like it's over.
it's over, right? And I reached into my backpack and I pulled up my mini pump. Saved the day. And so Derek is pumping up his tires, and I go to Brage. I'm like, hey, Brage, you know you're a big deal when you got Derek Westland pumping your tires. He pumps it up. He's ready to go. He's like, okay, that's hard enough. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Tippie. And I'm like, no problem. I put the pump back in my pack. And as he's going up, and I go, hey, Brage, word of advice. And he's like, yeah, Tippie? And I go, I know you've done a lot of big airs, but I've done a lot of big airs into sand and gravel. You know you're going to have to land this twice, right? He's like, what? I go, you have to land this twice. You're going to hit, you're going to load up the energy, and it's going to bounce, and you got to land it that time, and then you got to land it again. And he's like, right. I go, you got this. And he goes, I do got this. All right. Give him a high five. He goes up. I stood in the same spot as I filmed Bender do it, and I was going to roll the still camera for John Gibson. He had set up on a tripod where he went got a different angle, and I shot it with my phone. And here he goes. He sends it. And he hits. Boom. He loads up. He bounces. He takes the first hit. Lands it. Lands the bounce. He's over at the trees. So he took a foot off to veer away from the trees. And then he runs out to the bottom on the bike. Stomped it. I'd say he stomped it. He rode it out.
Yeah.
One foot was off, but whatever.
Yeah.
You know. Anyway, so he did it. Anyways, so everyone's hiking down. I walk down to the bottom. All the cameramen high-fiving each other. He's sitting with his shoe off. His ankle's going swelling right up. Him and Westerland are sitting with their backs to the slope. And I walk down, and I was just about to say, what are you guys, a couple of rookies? You got your back to the live slope? When I look up, and there was a rock this big bouncing down the hill, and it's going right at the back of Brage's head. Just as I walk up, and I can see it, and then it bounces and hits something, and it's going right at me. And I'm like, and then I can see where it's going to go. It's going right at the back of Westerland's head. And I'm like, I didn't even know what to do. I didn't have time to say anything. There was a shovel there. I grabbed the shovel, and I put the shovel, and I put it in front of Westerland's head, and the rock went bang!
No way.
And I saved Westerland's head from being brained. Like, almost took his head off. And like, you know when you hit a baseball?
Yeah,
and
it just like
the vibration.
vibrates your
That's how my
hands.
hand felt like through the shovel. I saved that shoot twice. And I saved Westerland's life.
So wild, bro.
But it was cool to see that piece of history when Bender did it with my forks.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't know if I would have done it. I don't think I would have done it. It was too flat. But I would have liked to shoot with Bender, me and Bender shooting back in the day. Because, you know, we were like two of the most prominent cliff jumpers back in the day. But I lent him my fork so he could do the biggest thing that had ever been attempted. And then I stood in the same spot to film Brage do it. And I felt happy to be a piece of, you know, it was
that
two
history.
monumentous moments.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was, I felt special to be there, but I definitely saved the day in bush shoots.
It's wild when you look back at, like when you're a guy that can be a part of the evolution of something, you know, like from where you guys first shot with the Kranked films to the New World Disorder stuff. Like, so for me as a kid, that was like my childhood.
Right.
You know, it was like Krusty Demons, New World Disorder.
Right.
That was just on rotation.
You were too young to see the Kranked movies?
I think I would have seen them, but I just don't think it did the same thing for me as like New World Disorder. Like I think with the New World Disorder, with like the music and, you know, like it hit me a bit.
How old
different.
were you then?
I don't know. Can you pull up like what years they came out?
Kranked came out in 98. And so
I was
New World
10.
Disorder would have come
I
out
was 10 when that came out.
2001?
New World Disorder was 2001.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's just D, Kranked MTB film. Can you? I wonder if they got the trailer on YouTube.
There's an ED, Kranked.
Oh, is it?
And it's spelled with a
K. Yeah. I wonder if the
The Kranked one came out in 98.
put on that trailer. Oh, that's the full thing. We just won't be able to show it.
I know I was there.
Yeah, you were in that. Yeah, Live to Ride. Yeah.
98, yeah. Yeah, so Search for the Holy Trail. So that's
I remember that one.
That's
dude.
when New World Disorder came out. I think they filmed it in 2000, and I think it came
So
out in
Kranked
2001.
and New World Disorder were they like split off, or was it the same company? I forget the
No,
history.
Kranked came out first.
Yeah.
And Derek was in Kranked 2, actually, riding a little bit in the North Shore. And he was actually in Pulp Traction, which was the first
Yeah.
mountain bike movie to have Freeride in it
Yeah.
in 95. And I feel bad, actually. I took his bike from him in 95 because he wasn't ready to ride the gnarly steep stuff. He did some single track, and Richie did some single track, but they didn't want to do what I wanted to do with the bike. And so there was 2 bikes provided for the shoot, and him and Richie Schley and Derek Westland had them. And I was like, I want to ride that. But it was a movie sponsored by Specialized, so I had to ride a Specialized bike. So I took his bike from him, and I went up and rode some gnarly stuff that got in the movie.
Yeah.
And that's a funny story how that happened. I was actually in Whistler snowboarding, and I ran into Greg Stump, and he said, "Hey, Tippie, you know anyone who could do a 360?" And I'm like, "Yeah, Richie Slay can do one on a BMX. I seen him do one yesterday at the skate park. I'm sure he could do a BMX on a BMX or a 360 on a mountain bike." And he's like, "Really? Okay." So then I was actually in the woods planting trees, 15 cents a tree, trying to save money to go snowboard racing. When I got the word from my buddy that Christian Beijing, who I filmed with snowboarding before, and gravel boarding when I got sponsored by Burton, and the Chinook came and melted the snow, so I had to come gravel boarding in the gravel pits. He's coming to town to film Richie Slay. And I'm like, I need to be in that movie. I need to poach that movie. And so I was actually in the woods on mushrooms with these 2 girls in the woods, and we're all taking turns kissing each other and making out. And like, my buddy Craig's like, "Hey, Tippie," he yells from the cook tent, "We're leaving in 5 minutes. If you want to ride, let's go." And I was like, I was kissing this girl, I was kissing that girl, they were kissing each other, and it was all this crazy mushroom trip thing going on.
Just all melting.
Yeah. And I'm like, "Girls, I gotta go." And they're like, No, you can't go anywhere. We're gonna go back to the tent.
Stay
and,
with us.
And I was like, "No, I gotta go." They're like, why would you go anywhere? And I go, "I'm gonna try and be in a mountain bike movie. Bye, girls." And I was out of there. I took the ride, got back into town because we're like 40 Ks in the woods. And so in the morning I showed up. Richie did his 360, and I felt bad because as a celebratory moment, I pulled out a joint. We smoked a joint, and he actually went to go do the 360 again, but this time he's all baked, and he got off axis, and he didn't even take his hands off the bars. Bam! He drove his face into the ground. It was clay, so he wasn't cut or anything. It was just smoke, like getting punched in the face by the ground. But he was fine. And then in the movie, I still feel so bad. The 360 that he stomped first time was out of focus. They never used it. They just showed him do the 360 and his face into the ground. And film had to be developed back then, so we didn't know that it was out of focus. It's not like you can just check it like now, right? And so I felt bad about that forever. So when we did the movie The Moment, I asked Darcy Trent, I go, "Can you put the 360 Richie stomping it first time, even though it's out of focus, just because I feel bad for getting him stoned and making him crash on the second 360. Anyway, so that's a wrap. We did, some single track, or they did some single track, and they were like, "Okay, what now?" And I'm like, "Let's go ride some steeps." And they're like, free riding wasn't a word in mountain biking really yet.
Yeah.
It was just, we called it steeps. And they're like, "Steeps?" I'm like, "Yeah, I got some really steep stuff." And they're like, "Okay, what trail?" And I'm like, "It's not on a trail. There's no trail this steep. definitely not back in the day like that, right? And so we went to the Valley View Skating Arena where the bike ranch is now, and right from the parking lot there's all these steep slopes. And I'm like, I'm gonna go ride that. And they're like, no. And I'm like, yeah. They're like, what?
Like V brakes and shit back in the day.
Yeah. It was. Were they V brakes even yet? I think it was still cantilevers. I was on cantilever brakes on my bike.
Way.
Yeah, it was like old school stuff. I was riding that stuff. I'd ridden this line before on a fully rigid bike, no front suspension, no rear suspension, cantilever brakes. Just, I think I rode it on a Ritchie Ultra cross country bike. And so I go, I'm going to ride down there. And they're like, come on. And I'm like, I'm going to go do it right now. They're like, well, really? Do it on this bike. You need to do it on a Specialized. So I took Westerland's Specialized M2, which was like a small or a medium. I'm a big dude on this tiny little bike. I hike up there. And I was like, okay, this bike's too small, but whatever. Like, this is for a Greg Stump movie, and he made the best ski movies back in the day.
Dude.
He was the man, And I'm like, 3, 2, 1, and I dropped in, and then I broke traction, and then I was like off to the races, and I started bucking and bronking and swapping, and I'm just like, I'm riding this out.
Yeah.
And I just went, and got it together, and then I rode it out the bottom, and then there was like a ditch on the side of the road that you got to go through, and I wheelied into it, wham, and then the forks bent. The front wheel went right into the frame. I bent the forks right into the front frame. Still on the bike, I step off, and there's like a smoky trail up the mountain, and I'm like, there you go. And Christian's like, little Bolex 8mm. Oh my God. Okay, you're in the movie. And I've told the story before, but that's the story. And so that was like the moment that they say real Freeride was created. And so then we had to use the only bike that was left was the one that Richie had, and we all took turns on it, running different lines around there and stuff. But
did it feel like mountain biking changed that day?
No, not right away.
Yeah.
We've been doing that stuff for a few years. My redneck buddies, Craig Olson, Bob Sivertson, Randy Walsh, Lance Henderson. I knew some crazy redneck dudes. No helmets.
Yeah.
Like idiots. My friends were idiots. They would ride these stupid things. Like people would be missing teeth and getting stitches, and they're tough, gnarly, blue collar dudes.
Yeah.
People putting their hands through the wheels, missing fingers. Like these are tough, gnarly country dudes. And from a blue collar background, we've been doing that for years actually. But there's no cameras. Like in the 80s, we're riding steep stuff and rode those lines, since the 80s. And so this was 95. This is like 6, 7, 8 years past we started doing that stuff.
Yeah.
With my redneck buddies. And it didn't feel like it changed. We just got it on camera for the first time.
Yeah.
And then it was like groundbreaking in the media world because
no one had ever seen it.
No one had ever seen shit like that. Like there was good BMXers and people in different places hitting big airs, booters and stuff. But as far as like going down the side of a mountain like that, no one had ever seen anything like that before.
Yeah.
And we didn't think it had changed. And but I guess it did, because then people were up in arms because we're riding off to the Sierra Club, the IMBA. We're like, you guys are bad people. You're riding off trails. And we got in a lot of grief. We got a lot of hot water for riding off trails. And Specialized had to pull the film. We're being pressured to pull the film.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And so, to keep on shooting it. Now we're into shooting. People are getting more and more cameras and whatnot. So for a while there, we just filmed in sandpits because even though we're riding clay, riding in the forest, riding steep stuff everywhere, if there's vegetation around, we didn't want any part of it to film it because we're going to get in shit for it.
Yeah.
And so we'd film in gravel pits because there's like a giant earth mover at the bottom. It's like, they're just churning it up.
Yeah, they're already
anyways.
fucking it up. Yeah.
They're already fucking it up.
Yeah.
And we'd put some tire tracks on it, and they're gone in half an hour from the wind.
Yeah.
And then no one could say anything. So we filmed a lot. Like, everyone's like, oh, all you rode was sandpits back then. Like, no, we rode everything, And like, the Counts is like used to be a lake, and there's a river down the bottom, so it's all these wicked clay sediments. They're wicked to ride, the shapes and whatnot. And then up a little bit higher in elevation, there's typical pine forest, like regular BC. And so we were riding everything, but we just filmed in the gravel pits for a while because we wouldn't get shit for it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting.
Tidbit. Yeah. It's very similar in a way to like the Cairns mountain bike scene back in the day. Like Glenn did Crazy Ice Cream Heads from outer space. Yeah. And that was
that your uncle?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's a legend. Hello, props to him.
Dude, he's the fucking man. He's actually in Scotland right now. I was talking to him this morning. He was just given like a talk on like sustainable mountain bike trails, and like, so he's just still just flying the flag for mountain biking. It's pretty epic.
Yeah.
But he did. Can you Google crazy ice cream heads from outer space? I don't even know if this would be on Google. MTB film. Yeah, there you go. From outer space. What year was that? Oh, I wonder if they just type in MTB film. I wonder if that even. It was like early. Oh, yeah, go to that Pink Bike article. I wonder if they've got it. Oh, no. But anyway, it was like early 90s. And then he did the Mud Cows movies. So it was like Mud Cows 1, 2, 3. And I think they did up to 4. But it's what you were saying about like the blue collar dudes. They had all these, because it was just full jungle. Like have you been to Cairns for Crankworks?
Not to Cairns. They've only sent me down to Rotorua.
Yep. Yeah. But they've got it on like that hill now. But they've all got roads that go to the top of these like massive jungle mountains, and they've got the water reservoirs up the top of them. And so you can basically, like, you can't drive up there, but you can just hike up for ages.
Right.
And then they just ridge lines everywhere that they would build these trails on. And Glenn was just building trails, and all the boys, they were all riding them. And there was like this one dude, Benny Bramham, I think, I can't remember where he worked.
That's a handle.
His mum was a school
Billy
teacher.
who?
Benny Bramham.
Benny Bramham.
Yeah.
That sounds like a badass.
Bro, he is a fucking badass. Like he only ever rode a hardtail, like full like the GTI drives and like, the full suspension bikes, like the M1s and Kavarik and Rennie and like those guys started getting these full suspension bikes, and he was like, nah, fucking hardtail for life. And they had their own scene. It was so far away from anywhere else, and like just sending shit and partying and like cuts and fucking breaking shit and cars and
one gives
like
a fuck.
Just fully sending it. And it was like, it was just not a thing, but like you said, they were just, you're in isolation, you're doing your own thing.
Know.
And until someone captures it on camera and releases it into the world, it's just like this crazy secret.
You're just used to it because that's what you're all around.
Yeah. We had all these like huge natural like lakes and rivers, and they would just put these like massive ramps into the lakes, and it just created like a whole scene and a whole culture in our town, and it ended up getting documented. And like Mick Hanna came from there, Sean McCarroll came from there. Yeah,
fast dudes.
Yeah, like Ronning and
both
like,
still very fast.
Yeah. Just had all these guys that just like came out of this one little weird town because there was just like this little cult group of mountain bikers that's all they gave a fuck about,
Oh, that's cool.
And it's just such a cool, like, that's how scenes start, and that's how movements kind of start, and like, I remember seeing a clip of Rat Boy when he was doing his thing, winning. It was just like, bro, Mud Cows was the shit. And it's like those early days that you guys were a part of just fully inspired like a total generation of kids
it changed
and an
the
industry,
Yeah, it changed the industry. I didn't know it was happening in 95. I remember I filmed for this movie, and the movie came out, and I thought it was going to be like, watching some Greg stunt movies in the skiing, and like we're going to be like celebrated, and it's going to be like, you guys are rock stars, and nothing really happened. Like just went on, and I was still saving money to go race snowboards, and things really didn't happen. But when Kranked came out, like we did another movie the next year after Pulp Traction from 95 and 96 called Tao of Riding, and we dropped some small cliffs, and then we were mixing gravel boarding with biking, and it was in a multi-sport film. Nothing really happened then. And then Kranked we filmed in 97. When that hit in 98, the movement had was just ready to explode.
Gathered momentum.
And I remember going to the premiere at a bar called Richards on Richards in Vancouver, and the premiere for Kranked, where we had all these little scenes mixing together, the North Shore scene and the guys from the Kootenays and the Kamloops guys and like everyone was there, and the lineup went down the block and around the corner, and I was like, whoa. And the electricity at that premiere, I've never felt it like that since. I've been to a lot of premieres, a lot of good movies, but it was so new and raw. Like, my hair's standing on end right now. people were just stoked, and it was happening, and people exploded when that film came on, and
Was that Kranked 1?
that was Kranked 1.
Can you play the trailer for that, Rones?
That's when things changed.
Yeah.
Like Kranked changed everything, and it brought it out there to the public eye, and people started putting, like, sponsors started putting in money. Richie, Schley, Wade Simmons, and I were hired and actually got sponsored, and we were the world's first professional freeride team, and it was happening then. So these are the hills of Kamloops. Dave Swetland was filming there. There's Richie.
Yeah.
There's Dave Swetland, who's dead now. And
How'd he die?
car crash.
No
Went
way.
off the road. So Kranked was originally going to be called Wheels of Freedom.
Huh.
But then when they made a deal with Fox, they worked together with Greg Fox and Christian and Bjorn.
Yeah.
And they decided to call it Kranked.
Yeah.
So this is an early rough draft of a trailer.
Really?
Yeah, this isn't even the real trailer. Like a bunch of the same footage. Swetland was an awesome dude. He was a gnarly dude. Skinny, little, intense dude. And Chris Lawrence, awesome rider. Canadian champion downhiller.
Yeah.
But great free rider. And
Dude, that is gnarly, Steve.
you know what?
Look at the fucking bikes that you're riding.
Oh, yeah. Like, in a way, it was gnarly. There's me doing some early cliff drops. There's me again in front with my buddy Andy Rass in the back. And just sending it and not knowing if the bikes were going to take it or if they could take it, and if we should land on the back wheel like some of these trials guys we saw, or do we land on the front wheel so that it disperses the energy, or land both wheels evenly. There's Dustin Adams, multi-time Canadian downhill pro elite racer. Chris Colbeck, Canadian champ downhiller. We brought in some racer guys. There's Richie dropping the gravel pit down a little chute. Aaron Knowles, ex-Callants dude, gnarly dude. There's just people out of the woodwork dropping lines, you know?
And so when you get that, like, become the Freeride team, like, how does your life change from that point?
Well, we got money. We got cash, you know? And
what sort of pay was it? What was it like?
oh, I think the first year, I think I got, like, not very much. There's me. That was the fattest era in the movie.
No way.
Yeah, filmed from behind back in the day. Oh God, what was I making back then? I was like, I think I got 20 grand here, 10 grand there, another 10 grand. I think I made like $60,000.
Which is good money, really.
To a redneck kid,
to
I
ride.
was rich.
Yeah.
I was rich to a redneck kid. That was insane. Because I was planting trees for 15 cents a tree, 15 cents, 30 cents, running around in the mountains with bags of little trees, planting trees, because the logging companies by law had to replant the areas that they logged. 45 cents, 60 cents. You're sweating all day to plant 2,000 trees, trying to make $200, $300 a day. And all of a sudden, I think Rocky gave me 10 grand, then 20 grand, and then Giro and Marzocchi and different sponsors and Roach added up to actually making enough to make a living and not have to go to work doing manual labor. I would do anything. You want me to jump off cliffs? I'll jump off more cliffs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was crazy, and maybe that's part of the reason why I got into a bit of trouble partying so hard is because for a number of years I was making good money, and then at one point I started making over 100 grand a year.
Yeah.
100 grand a year to a redneck kid is a lot of money.
Were you still living at home?
I was still living at home.
Yeah, so you just had too much money.
I had too much money.
Yeah.
And, I would actually live at home for a bit, and then I would travel and live somewhere else. And then I would come back from traveling, and I would go back to my parents and use that as a home base. And then I would move somewhere else and rent an apartment. And I was off and on all over the world, but I was mostly nomadic and just traveling and shooting and riding.
Yeah.
And snowboard racing in the winter, racing World Cup, and then, shooting mountain biking all year, which was challenging because I was trying to do two sports.
Be pro at two things.
Be a pro in two sports. And, I was riding for Burton which was a great help. I had the best boards in the world, and it was challenging to finish my snowboard season and then get on the bike, and everyone's got a head start on the bike, and then I would, be mountain biking while people were training in South America, or New Zealand or whatever on the snow, and so I was like behind, so I had to like
just always behind.
Yeah,
in
always
both
behind,
things.
'cause
Yeah,
most pros are doing one sport.
yeah.
And I was doing two, so it was tough to juggle. And I wasn't any Sean Palmer, so it was tough. I actually have a funny story about how I met Sean Palmer.
Dude, tell me. I love that guy so much.
Yeah,
He is the man.
He's the man. Palmer's awesome. But before I met him, I only knew of him. And, I raced border cross. I was Canadian border cross champ just before I retired in 2000. But he was 4 times X Games gold medalist. He won the ski cross. He entered ski cross, won the ski cross, gold medal in ski cross. He got second in Australia behind Nicolas Fayot, 0.15 of a second behind the win. Got the silver medal there. His first World Championships. He won Big Bear World Cup. He was on fire. He told me. No, I read actually. He didn't tell me this. He told me that his biggest sporting achievement was qualifying for Supercross Maine.
Mm-hmm.
And what a sick dude. But I was at a race in Tahoe where I was in the Super G and I got 11th place, which was enough for me to celebrate and party. And I got drunk and ripped it up. And I showed up for the border cross the next day and I missed practice. And I was trying to get into the course, and this big Hawaiian dude was standing there. It's like, course is closed, practice is done. Sorry, man. And I'm like, dude, I've been tree planting all summer to save money to be here, and I just drove 28 hours. Can I go down the side of the course and inspect it so I have a chance against all these guys when the heat start here in a little bit? And he's like, go down the side of the course. I'm like, okay. So I went down the side of the course, trying to memorize it. Double berm, spine, steep pitch, giant triple jump, finish line. I'm like, okay, I got it. And then I ran into a buddy of mine, Hetz, at the bottom. And I'd given him some hash that I'd smuggled across the border to my lower lip. If I got pulled in, I was going to swallow it. And he's like, Dip. I'm like, hey, Hetz. And he goes, you do the triples? And I go, no, I just inspected the course. And the guy next to him turns around. It was Sean Palmer. And he turns around, and in this packed lineup, he goes, ya pussy.
No way.
And I went, I am what I eat. And he goes, he didn't know what to say. And so the guys got on the chair. He pulled back from his buddies, and he got on the chair with me. And he's sitting next to me, and he's looking at me. And he goes, who are you anyhow? I go, I'm Tippie from BC. He goes, well, Tippie from BC, you burn them? I'm like, yeah. He goes, good. Pulls out a joint from out his ear and smokes a joint with me.
No way.
That's why I met Sean Palmer.
Dude. He's the fucking king of cool.
He
doesn't get much cooler than that guy.
Yeah. You know what? He was so talented and so good, and people loved the confident, cocky attitude. Everyone's here for second, and then he would do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty amazing. Actually, we've become friends over the years, and I messed with him the other day. So awesome. I haven't talked to him for a little while, but he Instagrammed me and said, hey, old man, what's up? Here's my phone number. Give me a call. And I'm like, oh. And I thought maybe he wanted some advice on how to quit drinking or something, because I'm 15 years sober or whatever. And I'm like, oh, whenever he wants. I'll call him. So I call him, and he's like, yeah, dude, just hanging out. I haven't been drinking very much. Just, I just wanted to ask you, I heard you have a dental sponsor. And I got sponsored by Dr. Joe Willardson from True Dentistry in Las Vegas. And I was like, yeah. He goes, dude, I don't make money like I used to, and I got horrible tooth pain. Is there any chance in hell you'd share that contact with me? And I'm like, yeah, for sure. You're one of my heroes, dude. Of course.
Yeah.
But I go, it's not really up to me. It's up to Dr. Joe. It's his deal. But I'll call him right now and ask him. He's like, really? And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, dude, thanks, man. I go, I'll call you right back. And he's like, okay, cool. And so I call up Dr. Joe. And I'm like, hey, buddy. And he's like, hey, what's up? And I'm like, Sean Palmer wants to have your contact. He's like, what, really? I'm like, yeah. And he goes, oh, that's cool. He goes, yeah, maybe you can take my kid's dirt biking or something. Yeah, give my contact tip. I'm like, okay, cool.
No way. That's unreal.
Yeah. And so I hang out with Dr. Joe, and he was like the Nevada State motocross champion.
No way.
And a sick mountain biker. We took him to Whistler, and he hit the Dirt Merchant Pro line blind. just go trail speed. Like, awesome athlete, good guy, and mountain bike fan, moto fan. And so he's stoked. He's like, yeah, give my contact. So I call Sean back up and I go, Sean, I just talked to Dr. Joe. And he's like, yeah. I go, he didn't know who you were. And he's like, what? And I go, he didn't know who you were. And I heard him under his breath go, fuck my life. And my wife, Sarah's in the background going, you're so mean. And I'm like, 1001, 1002, 1003. I go, I'm just kidding. He's super stoked. He's like, what? He's stoked? I'm like, yeah, he's super stoked. He's like, what, really? Oh, man, you got me. And I'm like, yeah, I did. Who fucks with Sean Palmer? Brett Tippie does. It was awesome. Anyway, so I think he's helped him out with some dentistry and whatnot. And yeah, it worked out. But
That is so funny, dude.
yeah, that was so funny. You got to hear how I met Craig Kelly. Craig Kelly is like 4-time world champion. He's the greatest snowboarder from that era. You know, like Sean Palmer, you know, has won the half-pipe world championships. And both of them two are probably some of the most iconic snowboarders from that era for sure.
Yeah.
So Craig Kelly was my hero. He was everyone's hero. And oh my God, this story is insane. I was walking down the main street of a place called Roslyn, Red Mountain. And as I'm walking down the street, I see some guy looking around in the snow, and he had like a burgundy Subaru 4-wheel drive with a big 2-liter rack on the top, and it looked just like Craig Kelly, my hero. And it is Craig Kelly. And I go, Craig. And he looks up. I'm like, it's totally starstruck, right? And I'm like, what are you doing in Roslyn? And he's like, I'm looking for my keys. And I'm like, those ones right there? And he's like, yes! I've been looking for these for 10 minutes. Yes! Dude, what's your name? I go, I'm Brett Tippie. And he's like, Craig Kelly. I go, I know. So we went to the bar. He bought me a beer. And then he's like, hey, what are you doing right now? He's like, come up to the room. Everyone's partying in the room, the Burton team. And I'm like, okay, cool. So we grabbed a 6-pack. We went up there. We're, you know, having some beers. He was sitting on his wife's head at the time and farting. Like, they were getting kind of crazy.
No way.
Yeah, like, Craig was a funny dude. And so we said goodbye. I took off. And then I was riding the next day. And there was a steep, long run underneath the chair that I was ripping. I used to use a race board when I free rode. So I would always be ready for racing because I was so tired trying to get used to my race board.
Yeah.
Ride a
Going
powerboat,
back
race
and
board.
forward.
I just used my race board all the time. And so I was ripping this run and going fast. I'm really fast. I've been snowboarding since like, I tried it in 81, 83. So this is like probably like 91 now. Yeah, it was the winter of 91. And I ran into Craig in the lift line. He goes, dude, I saw you from under the chair. You're hauling ass. You carved the shit out of that. That was awesome. Do you race? And I go, yeah, I've raced some amateur giant slaloms and stuff. And he goes, dude, you got to race pro. And I was like, oh, I don't even have a speed suit or anything. He goes, I'll sell you mine.
No shit.
And I was like, really? And he goes, you have to race pro, dude. And I was like, okay. And so I was like, maybe I will, you know? And he goes, actually, we're filming tomorrow. Would you come filming with us? And I'm like, is this happening, you know? Because a friend of mine was from Mackenzie from Powder King was asked to film with him, and he got in the opening segment of the Burton movie, Riding with Craig. And that was the guy, me and him were like battling back and forth. Me and him and Ross Baglady were the top 3 in BC amateur at that time. And so my buddy was in the movie with Craig Kelly in the Powder King segment, and he just asked me to film. And I was like, okay, where, when? And he goes, be in Trail, which is the one city below Roslyn, the little ski area.
Yeah.
Be there at 10 a.m. by the first set of stairways as you come down the hill on your right. I'm like, I'll be there. So I was there an hour and a half early. I was so psyched.
Just frothing.
It was super cold. It was minus 22 degrees Celsius. And so I'm frozen.
That's
I'm waiting.
really cold.
Really cold. And the snow was light and powdery. I waited. I was there at 10, 11, noon, 1, 1:30 in the afternoon. I waited for hours. And he never showed up. And the cameraman, no one showed up. And I was just like, no cell phones back in the day.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I was just like, oh, they don't want to shoot this.
The old 9 screen and 9 trick.
Right? So I was super bummed. So I went up, and where we're going to film is there's these stairways that go through this steep little mountainous city, and they have roofs over them to keep the snow off the stairs, and there was like this much powder on top of the roofs above the stairs.
That's cool.
And so I went and rode the line, and I left. They obviously didn't want to film it, and I was like bummed, and I left. Whatever. It was New Year's Eve that night. I had a New Year's Eve party, and I had people coming over. We're all partying, and in walks Craig Kelly and the Burton team, and I was like, "Oh, cool, hey!" And he goes, "Hey," he goes, "Did you ride that line in trail today?" I'm like, "Yeah." And then he grabbed me by the shoulder, boom, and he kneed me right in my thigh and gave me a Charlie horse. I had just dropped acid for my third time, and I'm starting to peak, and I grabbed him by the head, and I ran him into my fridge.
No.
Bah, 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 bah. Strong dude. You know, he's like 175 pounds. I was like 220.
Yeah.
Monster. I ran him into my fridge, but not hard, but just enough to know that I had him. Just like ran him in the fridge and went into the fridge. And then I don't remember doing this, but someone said I opened the fridge a couple times on his head. I might have done it as comedy, but anyway, then I held it and he's struggling. And I just held him there to let him know I had him. And I let him up and his eyes are watering. And I'm like, dude, I waited till 1:30 in the afternoon. You guys never showed up. I thought you didn't want to film. And he goes, oh, we're all hungover. He's rubbing his eyes. He's like, we're all hungover and we never got there. We shot it at last light. I go, dude, I waited till 1:30 in the afternoon. I didn't mean to poach you. Oh my God, this is a nightmare.
No
Craig
way.
Kelly, you're my hero. I did not mean to poach you. And he's like, oh, we thought you were being a dick. And I'm like, no, I didn't think you guys wanted to do it. You said me to be there at 10. I was there at 10. You never showed up. And he's like, oh, there's a big misunderstanding, dude. And he goes, it's all good. It's all good, man. And I'm like, oh my God, this is like a nightmare, right?
Yeah.
And he goes, by the way, do you have any beer? We couldn't get any booze from the booze. I go, I have boxes of beer. So I brought out the beer and we're all partying. And so then we became friends. And I think I might be the only one in the world who's ever run Craig Kelly's head into a fridge.
I would say that's probably a good chance.
Right?
Yeah.
So then the next race was happening down in Colorado. I went down there. I had somehow acquired a Volkswagen bus, sold the bus for $850. I took the money and I went down to this race. And it was a 2-run GS. The first run and the second run combined together. And I did my run. I was sitting 10th. He was sitting 11th. He's behind me. The second run's in the order of the first run. He's behind me and he's like, and he sold me the speed suit for $150 that he won the US Open in. And it's in the first Burton iconic movie, Smooth Groove, when he's riding a Burton M8 180 race board. I'm wearing his speed suit and I just beat him in the first run. And he's like, you beat me. And I'm like, I did. And he goes, do you want to bet on the second run? I'm like, yeah, how much? And he's like, $10. I'm like, deal. So we had a bet on the second run, which he beat me in. And so I gave him $10. And then he ended up finishing 10th overall, but I finished 11th in my first pro race. And then I went on to I think I got 7th overall in the US Tour that year, snowboarding. And then I went on to race World Cup and I finally cracked the top 10 in the world. But it all started with Craig Kelly, the legend, 4-time world champion, convincing me to race and running his head into a fridge.
Dude, that's so wild. You've had the craziest life, eh?
Oh, it's crazy. Yeah, like so many crazy things happen. I don't even know where to begin. But it was so many different stories. But that was a highlight, meeting my hero.
We need to bring you a quick word from our sponsor, Motorsport.com. I got a YZ450F out the back there that I got some upgrades to do. You know exactly where I'm going. I'm going to need some help with customer service, so I'm going to chat with a gearhead. Box showed up. It has a 2007 KTM master cylinder, a Yamaha caliper, also 2007, and a Turner braided brake lines. I feel like this is a very good upgrade for $600. Need the old hanger, so we're gonna put a bit of grease on that and get it back on, bolt her up. Caliper has been done. Now this can just get bolted on. Now, shout out to Kiefer, who I think stole this off Doug Duvar. That was easy. No, that was easy. All it needs now is to be bled and ridden. This is a pretty epic upgrade. You can get OEM parts to build this little Frankenstein brake kit or basically anything else for any brand by going to motorsport.com.
and all that happening, like,
Yeah.
it was
I just
crazy.
think like you've got such a unique vibe, you know, and I just think there's like a saying, your vibe attracts your tribe. And it's like you put such a big energy into the world, and it's like you have to get things back as a result of that.
I think so.
You know
I think
what I mean?
happens. Yeah. You put it out there and it comes back. The more you give, the more you get back.
Yeah.
You know? And so, like I'm definitely a fun pig. So I find fun people, or they find me.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm a hedonist. I love pleasure.
Yeah.
Good times.
Yeah.
And we all find each other.
Yeah.
And I've always been a little bit crazy, and crazy people find each other too.
Yeah.
And so, it it attracts people and energies and situations together.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
I think when you're talking about like your struggles with addiction, like when you look at the thrill you can get from risk taking, like I mean, there's just taking drugs. It's like risky, but it's crazy fun.
Yeah,
You know, and it's like that's the same type of people that can throw themselves off a cliff and consider that to be fun are also the same type of people that can like really push, like go deep when it comes to drugs and and it's fucking
100%.
crazy enjoyable. And there's also like an element of like bonding that happens with people that you do
that can go the distance.
that go
and go
deep
hard.
with you into like it's unfortunately very similar to extreme sports, and that's why I think you see a lot of extreme athletes have problems with drugs and alcohol.
Right. The average person, your average accountant or individual is not going to jump off a cliff. And that same person's not going to do a tab of acid or snort a rail of cocaine or do something that's taboo and kind of risky. The person who will jump off a cliff on a bike or a snowboard or a set of skis or drop into a vert skate ramp with no helmet, that kind of person is more likely to do something that's risky, taking drugs too. And the rush you get and the feeling and the inherent risk, they're going to be like, I got this.
Yeah.
It's that kind of person for sure that does it.
Yeah. And you develop really good friendships with people in a weird way. Like there was a lot of drugs around when I was a kid, like in the area that we grew up, and it was like, I guess it feels like a kind of a similar place to where you grew up in a way, you know?
Right.
And you end up having these strange friendships with people that will go and just do drugs for like 3 days, or, you know, start Thursday, finish Sunday.
Right.
And at the end of it, you're all walking away and you're like, whoa, boys, that was a fucking ride. You know?
Totally.
And there's like almost a weird sense of like friendship and community and bonding that happens in that place. It's like, it's pretty unfortunate
100%.
that it gives you a similar feeling, you know?
Yeah. The adrenaline and the, like looking to score, whether it's a powder stash or a sweet lip or whatever, and getting it. And then the moment of that feeling of like jumping a cliff
over the edge. Yeah.
Or taking a hit is so similar. And, you know, extreme sports, action sports people live for that feeling, and then it can so easily morph into drug use and abuse.
Yeah.
And it definitely got me.
So you've been 15 years sober?
I'll be 16 years sober on December 17th.
So what was the last thing you ever did?
The last thing I ever did for drugs was at a friend of mine who actually made all the covers for the Kranked movies and did a bunch of the graphics of the Ghost Rider and whatnot, Stu Mackay Smith. It was his 40th birthday. And I went there, and I'd gone to rehab and had been sober for 7 months and 3 months and whatnot. But at this particular night, I got drunk, and I did it. I got some cocaine and I smoked it, and I freaking went for it. And my wife, she's my girlfriend at the time, and was like, okay, we have a baby. You did this. That's 3 strikes. You're out. She's like, you're an awesome guy.
Yeah.
But this is...
Yeah, I don't want this.
This is your problem, not my problem.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? She's like, we're done. Like, I'm going to raise this baby with someone else, and we're done. And so that was the rock bottom moment for me, where I was like, no one's raising my baby but me. Like, I'm blowing it. I am blowing it. I'm done. Like, I can't do this. I don't want anyone to raise my baby but me.
Yeah.
And I just said to her, I go, listen, if you give me one more chance, I'll quit drinking and I'll never do that shit again.
Yeah.
And she's like, I'll give you one more chance. You ever do that shit again, I'm gone. Look me in the eyes. You do that shit again, I'm going to walk and I'm never coming back.
Yeah.
And I went, okay. And that was December 17th, 2008. That's the last time I ever drank alcohol and the last time I ever did hard drugs.
So did you, sorry if there's too much to talk about. It's just...
It's all good. I want to put it out there because it might help somebody.
Yeah.
Someone has a problem. If you got a problem, you can work on it.
Yeah.
And a lot more people have problems than we know.
Oh,
so
dude, for sure.
I want to be transparent about it.
Yeah.
And I'm not proud of those times. It's
Yeah.
like a nightmare. Like, I was a professional mountain biker. I was a professional snowboarder. I was an athlete. My dad was a teacher. My mom was a nurse. I'm embarrassed that I was a drug addict.
Yeah.
I was a street person. In the end, I lost 50 pounds of muscle. I was like all cheekbones and a crack back and ribs. Like,
yeah, like it was...
I didn't sleep for 10 days once.
Yeah.
And it's embarrassing. But at the same time, if it helps somebody by me talking about it, I want to be that guy that helps them. And I actually get messages from people that go, dude, I'm 6 years sober, or I'm 3 years sober. Or, thank you for sharing your story. It's helped me.
Well, we just had Jason Ellis on the podcast.
Yeah.
And we spoke a bunch about it. And I think too, like, there's like levels of drug addiction too.
Yeah,
and
people who can function doing it.
Yeah.
And then people who just lose the plot and just go all in.
Yeah, and there's also like, like people that they smoke weed every day, and then it's like there's levels to how it affects your life, or there's like they drink, or they just go on and doing coke with the boys. But there's like it's a problem if you can't not do it.
Yeah.
It might not be ruining your
I have a drug
life.
problem. I don't have any drugs.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think that it's not like you have to just be like a full-blown fucking drunk junkie on the streets to
be a drug addict.
To be like, I kind of have a problem, and maybe there's maybe I should look at this as a thing that I do.
Right.
It's like it just doesn't have to go that far. But I think when you can hear stories from someone where it has gone that far, it's sort of, I don't know, I think it does help people, I remember, cocaine is fucking bad where I live on the Gold Coast. Well, like in Australia on the Gold Coast. So like we grew up in Cairns, super small town, and all of my, like from 14 to 18 when I left town, it was just acid, fucking ecstasy, like just every weekend, every kid, it was fucking crazy. When I look back at it now, I stayed away from like a lot of it in the early years. But man, I had friends that we would be taking to hospital and just dropping them off in the front of the emergency because they're fucking ODing, guys getting hit in the head with baseball bats because people were trying to steal a bag of 1,000 pills.
I got a story about that.
Fuck. Like it wasn't cool,
It's a gnarly world.
But it felt fucking normal, bro.
Well, because it's all around you, and it becomes normal because...
And then your best friends that you grew up with from 7, 8, 9, 10 years old.
Yeah. It's a weird scene because like it just seems so ghetto to me. And then when I started doing it, and I slowly started sliding down
into
this world. And, I was always around mountain bikers and snowboarders, and everyone's pretty friendly. Everyone's pretty cool. Everyone wants to help each other. You're in that world. You're out for yourself. And people are conniving and desperate. And there's people in different hierarchies of the criminal underworld that are involved in it. You've got your big bosses, and then you've got your, like, dealers and distributors, and then you've got your people on the street, and then there's also the sex trade, which gets involved in it, and then the stolen goods and people trading stuff, and like there's all this criminal underworld that I never knew anything about. I was like a sporty guy, and but at the same time, it was kind of gnarly, but
weirdly fun.
Weirdly fun because it was like stepping into a movie.
Yeah.
It's like you're in like Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels.
Yeah.
Or some like gangster movie. You're dealing with gangsters and dealers and boosters and pimps and like there's just like it's fucked. It's like and then you just
it's that same adrenaline.
It's the same adrenaline.
Very similar.
Very similar.
I had a friend, one of my best friends growing up. His dad was a pretty gnarly like speed meth dealer, right?
Yeah.
I didn't know for a long time, and I had uncles that were policemen, and so there was like step aside, like, hey, Jace, like just letting you know, like we're watching his dad a lot, and which means we're watching his son a lot, and it's like it's pretty bad. So just do it. I know you've been friends for a long time, but like just be careful.
Right.
And it's like, but at that same time, we're going in these V8 like crazy fucking sick cars, and we're like 16-year-old kids driving to like put superchargers on these cars and like thousands of dollars on stereos and like just you just get into like this very fucking weird world, but then it just gets like super violent and super chaotic, and over time it just feels
always chaotic,
crazy normal.
Yeah,
and you're just like it's not until some really bad shit starts happening, like
right, and it happens fast,
and you're just like, what the fuck is going on, dude?
Right. Yeah, I got over my head in a bunch of situations because I wasn't really street smart yet.
And you were like a fun, happy-go-lucky,
fun, happy guy. I was like a fun drug addict.
Yeah.
And people would actually give me drugs because I was entertaining.
Yeah.
You know, and I started, with a lot of money. Like
that's probably another reason why people were pretty stoked to be around you too.
Yeah, exactly. So and I was generous with it, and then I wanted to party, and I was also getting over a relationship, and I never really did it. And so it was new to me. Like I was in my 30s. I never did it. I had a bunch of money. I tried it, just snorting lines and stuff. And then, I didn't even think I would do that. But I had a crazy rampage that happened. And I came back and had a breakup. And then it just slowly slid into it. Like I would start and I would try it. Like the CD case would go by at my friend's place on the res, and they knew I never did that, so it would just always go by me, and I would smoke joints, and that was about it. And then one day after this breakup, I grabbed the CD case as I went by, and I pulled in, and I was like, and I did a line, and I was like,
yeah,
I feel pretty happy.
Yeah.
And then that was like, and then I didn't do it again for 2 weeks, and then I did it again in a week, and then did it again, and then I didn't want to be a mooch, so I went and bought some. I found some where I could buy some, and that was the beginning of the end, because then I knew where to get it. And, before I knew it, I was doing it all the time and going hard and staying up for days, but having fun and still going to the bar. And I still had a career riding, and it just slowly just degraded into full-blown addiction, where eventually I lost every single sponsor because I wasn't going to shoots. I was blowing it.
And people know
I was losing weight.
Yeah. And
it was obvious. And it got ghetto pretty fast. And at one point I couldn't find any powder, so I was just like, fuck it, give me some of that. And I fucking got some rock and fucking blasted that, and that felt like doing 20 lines all at once. And I never ever thought I would do that. Like, I came from a good family. I was a professional athlete. I never thought I would do that. And it got me hard. And slowly but surely, like, I just degraded until I was like, I lost every sponsor. I lost my truck. I didn't want to see my parents.
Yeah.
Who were looking for me all the time.
Because you're embarrassed the whole time.
I was embarrassed.
Sure. Yeah.
Totally embarrassed.
Yeah.
I didn't want to see my friends from the mountain bike world. I didn't want to see my friends from the snowboard world. I didn't want to see my friends from the TV world. I was like, and I would go buy some, and I would park 2 blocks away, and I'd have a hood on and sunglasses, and I'd go get it. and then I would leave, and didn't want to see anybody and talk to anybody. And then next thing I knew, it was a few years later, and I'm walking down the street with a pipe. I don't give a fuck. And I was like all skinny and shit. And, and then eventually I had no money. And so then I was like literally on the street. Like I had no home. I was homeless. And I, would like eat out of garbage cans. Like I was starving. I was dying out there. And, someone in a restaurant would leave their plates and they'd before the busser would come in, I would get in there and I'd get some food to survive, like super ghetto and
just like out of character.
Out of character.
Like just not who you
it's
are.
Not who I was. It changed me.
Yeah.
It changed me. And, I'm usually very happy and cracking jokes and stuff. And I was like...
Dark.
Yeah, it was dark. And I remember I was doing a delivery for a bit of product and the bicycles that you use would get jacked all the time. They were just a commodity that just went. And
yeah.
I used this one bike that had no tire on it. And it had a flat spot on the rim. And no one would ever take it because it had no tire. And they're just like, you can't ride that. And so I was just like riding that. And I'm riding along the road. And this F-350 went by with some mountain bike kids. And they're like, Tippie! And I look at them and I see the reflection in the window of the truck as I'm riding there, and I got shaggy hair, I'm unshaven, I'm super skinny, a big head. I look like a dirty Q-tip. And I'm riding this bike with no tire on it, with a flat spot. Ka-dunk, 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 ka-dunk. And I'm riding down the road, and I'm like, I had this little epiphany, like, what am I doing? That was me. That reflection was me. And then, like, there was a few times I had epiphanies, and speaking of baseball bat fights, I had this gnarly moment where I was out of money. I'm in a shack, and there was this Montreal gangster who gave me his card and his cell phone to go get some money, come back with $100, and then he'd buy some product and he'd give me a little bit. So I went and did that 3 or 4 times. And then the last time that I went, a dealer was like, hey, if you give me the $100, I'm going to reload. I will give you the $100 in product plus a bit more extra for yourself because you're helping me out. I'm like, I got to be back quick. This is a gnarly dude. And he's like, it'll be quick. I'm like, okay. So I gave him the $100 instead of bringing it back right away. And then he went and he reloaded. And then he had to go somewhere to cook it up. And he started falling asleep. And there's all these drug addicts that are going to attack him. So I'm guarding him. And they're all ready to rob him. And then he wakes up and he sees what's kind of going on. And he grabs everything and runs out the door and jumps in a vehicle and is gone. And I'm running after him going, I need the $100. Holy shit. And so I went to another place. I got another $100. And then while he was like weighing the product out, a girl showed up and the dealer and her were kind of flirting. And the girlfriend of the dealer came running in the room with bear spray and bear sprayed everybody. And the girl, who's a working girl, grabbed the product and the money and ran out the door with it. And we're all like bear sprayed. Now I'm out $200. And I know this Montreal gangster is going to kill me. And so I'm like, okay, I need to fix this. And so I didn't want to take any more money out. Like everything's getting chaotic and getting bad. So I went to a friend's place who would hook me up with some weed that I could trade for some product and come back and then square it all up. And so I went there and he wasn't home. I'm waiting for him. And I fell asleep. I've been up for days. And I woke up the next afternoon.
No.
And I'm like, I still had his card and I still had his phone. And I'm like, okay, good.
Oh, no way.
Still had it. Didn't get robbed while I fell asleep. And I go over to the last place I saw him, to the shack, and I bang on the door, and the little slider opens up. Shh, shh. Door opens. Come in. All of a sudden, they grab me, and they're like, we got him. They figured I ripped him off. And that gangster was gone, but they had, the alert was out for me that I was out there and that I'd ripped this guy off, and I didn't. And they're like, give me his card. Give me his phone. Give it to me now. And I'm like, I'm not giving you shit. And he's like, give it to me now. And I'm like, I don't know who you are. Because the dealer that was there when I was there had been taken over by this dealer. And they always take off these shacks, get taken over. And whoever's got money and product. And or they just muscle their way in or whatever. And I'm like, I don't know who you are. I'm not giving you shit. And he goes, what happened? And I told him what happened. He's like, fucking bullshit. And I'm like, no, that's what happened. And he's like, give me his shit. I'm like, I'm not giving you shit. I don't know who you are. He's the guy that gave it to me. I'll give it to him. This is the last place I saw him. And I came back here to give it to him in person. And then he storms out of there, and he was waving this knife around. And I'm like, what are you going to do, stab me? And he's like, fuck you. And then he walks out of the room, and then the bouncer, the doorman, is standing there, big, gnarly dude. He's like, you should give it to him, man. And I'm like, oh, would you give someone to a stranger that's on someone else's card to a drug dealer? Would you do that? Would you get, I came here to the last place. All of a sudden, I got smoked in the head. And I've stepped forward, and I saw stars. Seen stars lots of times.
Yeah.
And the stars were there. And then they went, and they're gone. And I turned around, and the guy had just baseball batted me in the back of the head.
No way.
And I'm like, I was trying to think of something clever and funny to say. And I just went, if you're going to hit me, hit me from the front, you fucking coward. So he runs in to hit me again with a baseball bat. I step in and I block it on the handle before he gets a good swing, you know, and get the fulcrum of the bat coming down. I block him on the handle. I run him into the wall. I keep the legs going football style. I run him down the hall. He falls in the closet. I take the baseball bat. I'm choking him with the baseball bat. And then the bouncer comes running down the hall, this big gnarly dude. And then he goes to grab me. I let him grab me. And as soon as he goes for the commitment twist, because like it was so easy, as soon as he went for the commitment twist, I just took his head and just slammed his head into his head. And I just took and I grabbed him by the hair, and I just started clunking their skulls together. Clunk, 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 clunk. They're all welted up. They're fucked. They're all bloody. Meanwhile, the blood is coming down from this wound. I should have got like 10 or 12 stitches in the back of my head.
No way.
And the blood's coming down and spiraling off my nose, and they're covered in my blood and their blood. And the bouncer from the front door comes running down the hall. And I just look at him, I'm going, clunk, 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 clunk. And he comes down the hall, and I go, argh! And he's like, whoa.
This is too much.
He's out of there. So he leaves. All the drug addicts lock the doors after he leaves. Those guys get their shit together. They're up. They're all welted up and like, you're going to die. And I'm like, I'm not going anywhere. He's coming. The Montreal gangster guy, I forget his name, is coming. And I'm like, I'm right here. Meanwhile, they had a shower. They showered up, got all the blood off them. I had a shower. I'm sitting around waiting for this gangster to show up. And they're smoking, doing drugs. And I'm sitting there. I got nothing. I'm just waiting. And they're like, you need a toke? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, throws me a rock. I blast it. I'm sitting there doing drugs with a guy that just baseball batted me.
No way.
It's so weird. And then all of a sudden, they're like, oh, here he is. And he comes rushing in. He's got two dudes with him, gnarly dudes. They circle me. The guy's got me up against the wall, and he's got a knife in my ribs, a serrated steak knife. He's like, what happened? And I told him everything. Blah, 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 blah. And he's like, yeah, okay, I know those guys. I checked with them. You're totally correlates. You're telling the truth. I had thousands of dollars in there. You could have robbed me blind. You took $200 out. They'll know those guys. Everything's going to be squared up. I can work with you. You want to talk? I'm like,
no way.
Sure. Puts his knife away. Then we're doing drugs again. I'm just sitting there going, whoa, this is crazy. So then they leave. I'm out of drugs again. I still don't have any money. All of a sudden, police, open up. Police, open up. They come running in. I had set up the dealers with this little towel that had elastic surgical tubing to a hole in the ceiling that you pull the pins and everything gets sucked up into the ceiling and is gone. And I got pieced out for that, for setting them up with a good thing. They pull the pins, the thing gets sucked up. The police come in, they can't find any drugs.
No way.
And they're looking for someone, they can't find the person they're looking for. They're leaving, all the cops leave. And the one cop, as he's walking out of the living room, that says to me and the other people there, as you were, you dirty drug addicts. And he walks out of the room, and I go, we're not all this bunch of dirty drug addicts, you know. And he leans back in the room, and he goes, oh, yeah? What have you ever done with your life? I go, well, I was a BC All-Star football player. I was a World Cup snowboard racer. I cracked the top 10 in the World Cup. And I helped kickstart the Freeride movement. And I used to jump the biggest cliffs in the world on mountain bikes. And I've been in 26 movies. And he's like, yeah, right. And I go, Google me. And he goes, what's your name? I go, Brett Tippie. And he goes, how do you spell it? And I tell him. And he leaves. Next thing I know, you know, that shot got taken over by another guy. He came in and kicked everyone out with no money with a hammer, you know. And so I left, and then, you know, I went home and then slept. And then about 3 weeks later, I was on another run, and I was like falling asleep, getting back from this suburb outside of town. And I was so dehydrated. I think I went to someone's hose to drink water, and then they called the cops because there was some homeless guy drinking water out of their hose. I was that homeless guy. And the cop shows up and took my pipe, stepped on it, put me in the drunk tank for 12 hours, which is air conditioned, no pillows, concrete bench, no blankets,
they
nothing.
suck.
I'm in my underwear,
Yeah.
and freezing for 12 hours. I get let out. They're giving me my street clothes back, and the cop goes, "What are you doing in this world?" And I'm like, "I don't know." And he goes, "You don't belong in this world. This is not your world." And he goes, "Remember who you really are." And I'm like, "Excuse me?" And he goes, "I Googled you." And I was like, I look at him, and it was the cop that I told Google me.
Yeah.
And he spun the computer, and there was like photos of me racing World Cup and jumping cliffs on my mountain bike. And he goes, "That's who you really are. Don't forget that. Don't forget who you really are." And I was like, "Thanks, man." And he goes, "When's the last time you ate?" And I'm like, "I don't know, 5 days ago or something. I don't know. I've lost track." And he's like, "If I gave you $10, would you promise me not to spend it on drugs?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Here's $10. Get some food, kid. And remember who you really are." And I was like, "Okay." And so I went out and I bought food with it and kept me alive again, And I ended up seeing this cop several times. I was in a stolen car once that I didn't know was stolen, and he pulled us out, a bunch of cops at gunpoint, And then he would be like, "The Cherry Creek apartments are getting hit. Don't be around there tonight." And then he just gave me some words of advice and become kind of a friend,
Yeah.
And when I got sober and went to rehab and then got sober and met my wife and had kids and got a job and I was like healthy, I got a hold of him. I said, "Dude, I'm sober again. I'm sober. I've been sober for years. Everything is good." And he's like, "That's awesome. I knew it." He goes, "You know what? You changed the way I police. I just assumed everyone was a dirty drug addict and I just treated everyone the same.
Yeah.
When I met you, I realized that not everyone's the same. Some people are just there for the weekend. Some people are trying it for their first time. Some people are lifers. I just assumed everyone was just a full dirty drug addict. And I'm a sergeant now, and I have taught what you taught me to all of my staff, and we changed the way we police now.
Yeah.
And we treat everyone with much more respect and humanity, and knowing that everyone's got a story, and that everyone, someone changed those people's diapers at one point and taught them how to read and et cetera, and that everyone's a real person. And I want to thank you for that." And I was like, "Wow, you're welcome, and thank you." And he said, "You know what? My nephew's getting into that. Would you come and have a cup of coffee with us next time you're in Kamloops?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And so I called him up and I went and had, a cup of coffee with his nephew, and he was just trying it. And I just went, "You know what? I just thought I'd try rail once." And I was a pro athlete. I never thought I would go down that road ever. And it can happen real easy. It's a slippery slope, and it's taken many a good person down, and it can take anybody down, and it can take you down. Even though you think you're different, it can get you.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "You know what? I thought I would step over the line." And I've said this in other podcasts and other interviews and stuff. This is one that really made sense to me. I go, "You know what, dude? You think you can step over the line and check it out and come back?" That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to check out the dark side. I wanted to see what it was about, then step back to myself. What I didn't realize is that when you step over that line and experience it, even though if you have a strong willpower to step back, the willpower of your dark side is just as strong as yours.
Yeah.
And then you have this internal battle that you're going to have to fight forever. If you don't know, you don't ever know. And so be careful stepping over that line, because you're going to wake up your dark side, and he's just as strong as you are. And he's just sitting there like this, like, I scared him straight.
Mm.
And so it worked out, and he said that he got his shit together. But yeah, and this cop had a bit of an epiphany there. He helped, I don't know if he helped save me, but he definitely gave me a little...
Played a part,
a little wake-up call. My dad never stopped looking for me. My dad was, I was very close with my dad, and he never stopped looking for me. Big dude, 6'1", 280 pounds, but gentle as a lamb, school teacher, artist, but he would come looking for me and would bring me water and fresh socks and would try to get me to come home. Sometimes I'd go, sometimes I wouldn't. And he got to know all these gnarly people, and they all loved him because he was like so relatable and
just a nice guy.
Nice guy, and everyone loved him. And then all these drug addicts were like, "You should go home with your dad. Like, what are you doing here with us? I don't have anyone that loves me. You have someone who loves you. Why are you here? Go." And he never stopped looking for me. And my mom, they would always had hope for me. And my mom was like, "I know you'll come back to being yourself, and you'll hold your head high, proud again." And I a friend of mine, Greg Salmon, who I was on the national team with, gave me a job doing construction, let me stay in his house. I was like a dirty crackhead. He let me stay in his house, drove me to work every day and back home. And I kind of just grabbed onto eating, sleeping.
Yeah. Just
working,
tried to be normal.
Trying to be normal.
Yeah.
And it worked. So props to my buddy, Greg Salmon. And Darren Bearclaw got me a bike to ride.
Sick.
That, kickstart my love of bike riding again. And Jordy Lunn at one point, I'd spent like months at my parents' house in the basement. I said, lock me in the basement and don't let me out. And I went to rehab and I fucked up in rehab. 60-day program. I made it 40 days before I went and picked up. And I was...
what was the hardest part about it? Like trying to get clean?
Oh, it's just it coming out of the blue. It just gets you and you're... It's like being possessed by yourself. And so I was clean for a long time. And I remember at one point I ran into an NHL hockey player. He said, hey, you want to go do a few zippers outside? Come with me. And I'm like, yeah, okay. And then Jordy Lunn showed up. And Jordy Lunn was like, seeing what's going on. And he's like, no, don't do it. And he looks at the guy. And he looks at this big hockey player. And he's like, beat it. And, gnarly Jordy Lunn looked. This guy was like, oh, and so he beat it. And I didn't do it. And he's like, you don't want to do that. And then that moment saved me. Like, it was one of those moments. And because the next day I met my wife and I was like,
no.
Yeah. And if I had been
Bro,
on a run,
if you did that,
I wouldn't have met her.
No way no way.
Yeah. She was probably the biggest thing that helped me get over it.
Yeah.
And because she is such a strong character and it was so loving. And, I was at the Whistler Bike Park. It was at Crankworks. I wanted to see everyone again. I'd been sober for a few months.
It would have been really hard for you to go back to mountain biking.
Yeah. Well, because I hadn't ridden for a while.
But no, not even that. I think just to show up
Show
again.
my face.
Yeah.
I was embarrassed. I'm a proud dude.
Yeah.
I advocated health and outdoors, and to show myself up after doing that. Not everyone knew, but they wondered where I was, because I disappeared. I went from being like in all the media and all the movies and on covers of magazines to gone for 5 years.
Yeah.
5 years of in a different world with different people. But I went to the Longhorn and I saw this girl and I was like, oh my God, that's the most beautiful girl I've ever seen in my life. I have to meet her. And then she started talking to my buddy Wade Simmons, who's married. And so I cruise up. I'm like, hey, Wade. And who's this? And she's like, who are you? I go, I'm Brett. She's like, I'm Sarah. And we started talking. And then I'd make a joke and she would take it and then put a twist on it and bounce it back over the net. And I'd be like, and then I would take that joke and I would turn it into a double meaning and bat it back over the net. And she would take it and then turn it into a triple meaning and bat it back over the net. And I'm like, oh my God, she is quick.
Yeah,
she's cool. Like, she's funny. And I just said to her, I go, after 1 hour of talking and full sparks, I went, you're really cool. I really like you. These events go, I might never see you again. Can I have your phone number? And she's like, yeah, okay. So she gave me her number. I put a little piece of paper and I put it in that little small pocket of your jeans. And then we said goodbye. And then that night I ended up partying with all the slope stylers from Crankworks and a bunch of mountain bikers. And I got wasted, drank. Still drinking at the time. And I woke up in the morning and I puked in Westerland's bathroom in his hotel. And I cleaned that all up in the morning. And then I was like, okay, at least I have that phone number. Oh my God, Sarah, who was that girl? She was amazing. And then I'm like, and from the sweat from wrestling and drinking, the piece of paper was all balled up and just totaled, right? And I'm like, no, gone. And so I was just like, I don't know who that girl was, but she was the most amazing girl I've ever met. But she's gone now. So a month later, this new thing called Facebook started up. And this is like, this would have been 2007. And I got this private message because I signed up for Facebook and I got this message. Hi, do you remember me? My name's Sarah. We met at Crankworks. My girlfriends and I are coming mountain biking in Kamloops. Is Greenstone a good place to ride? I'm like, oh yeah, it's awesome. There's 2 trails off the back, 2 trails off the front. The 2 off the front are kind of gnarly, but blah, blah, blah. And then she's like, oh, cool. She goes, how come this is called Facebook and you don't have a picture up? And I'm like, oh, I'm new here. I'll figure it out. So I figured out how to load a picture, sent it up, and she's like, oh, I forgot how incredibly handsome you are. I'm like, oh.
Did you now? Yeah.
So we end up flirting a bit, and then we end up going on our first date at the Whistler Bike Park. And I hadn't ridden in years, like maybe the odd jalopy on the street or something, but I had mountain biked in years. And so we get up to the Whistler Bike Park, and I'm like, okay, go for it. And she's like, no, you go for it. So it was crank it up. It was starting to rain just a little bit. It was slippery. I went down. I hit the first wall ride, and I didn't lean into the turn. Just kind of, skidded out. Rolled my knee pad off, cut my knee. She airs off the wall, does a little turn down, hits the next wall.
No way.
Airs off that, hits the corner, rap, shroups out of there. She's gone. And I'm like, what the fuck? So I pull my knee pad on, and I'm like, get up on the thing, and I pedal after, and I hit the next box, and it's all wet, and I grease out, and I land sideways, and I nut myself.
Oh.
No. So I race after her, and she's pulled over on the side of the trail with her hands on her lap. Like, I come up sweating, bleeding, like, and she's like, I thought you used to be a pro or something. And you know what I said? I said, I used to be Brett Tippie. And she's like, later she got stickers made from Mirazoki that said, I used to be Brett Tippie.
No way.
And they sold out.
That's so cool.
So I went, home with my tail between my legs.
Yeah.
And then we had a second date the next weekend on the North Shore, which is super gnarly and technical. But this time I went and rode every night that week.
You rode.
And so I went down to the North Shore. But this time, she schooled me again.
No way.
Yeah, she's good. She was good. And she rode all the time. And I was like, who is this girl? And so we started hanging out. I hung out with her friends who all mountain biked. And we fell in love. And she had met my parents, but when my dad went to Mexico with my mom on holidays, we went and had dinner before, and they gave her the thumbs up, and I almost blew it 3 weeks into the relationship with this girl. I borrowed her car to go to my buddy's wedding, Dustin Adams, Canadian downhill champ, pro elite downhill champ, and then I got drunk, I got wasted, and I went on a run, and I never showed up. I had borrowed her car. She was like working at the Vancouver Film School as an instructor, and she was taking the bus to work because this new boyfriend didn't return from the weekend. It's like Wednesday, and I left on Friday night, and she's just like...
Did she know about your past?
I did. I told her.
Yeah, you told her.
But she didn't know it was that bad.
Yeah.
I told her it was pretty bad, but she didn't realize it was that bad.
Yeah.
And so I eventually, I left the car at my parents, and I went on to his wedding, and I just ended up using, and my dad found me standing in a parking lot, standing up, and I went back to bed. And then on Thursday, my mom woke me up and said, there's a girl named Sarah here for her car. Come face the music. And I was like, oh, I blew it with the most amazing woman I've ever met. What the? Okay, well, okay. So I walked out there, and I gave her the keys. And then I go, she goes, and I go, she goes, first of all, I'm really fucking mad. Second of all, I love you, and we're going to work through this. And I'm like, she goes, get some sleep. We're going to go back, and let's work this out. We got this. And I'm like,
that's crazy.
Holy shit. And, we had fallen in love. We had a serious bond. Like, right from the get-go, we were on together. And, I know she doesn't love me for money because I didn't have anything.
Yeah.
And she worked at the Vancouver Film School. She owned her own place. She had her shit together. And she fell in love with me. And I was like, I don't even know why she fell in love with me. Mm-hmm. She said that she was firstly intrigued because when I was writing on Facebook with her, I had perfect spelling, perfect punctuation. My dad was an English teacher, so I have perfect punctuation and everything. And she was like, just another meathead, And we just got each other.
Yeah.
And so, after that one, I screwed up a couple more times. And then she finally pulled the, I'm done. And then I said, I'll quit. And I did quit. And I never drank again. And I'll be 16 years sober in December here. And, I did construction for a few years, doing anything I could do to buy diapers for this new baby Jessamine that I got. And eventually, I got laid off from that, but I was starting to ride again. And I was like so hungry to prove that I still had it. And I went. So, it took me about 3 weeks to get my riding up to a level that I was happy with. But then I was sending everything on the North Shore. I was just like, take me to the gnarliest stuff. I was doing all the gnarliest stuff. I didn't care. I wasn't suicidal, but I was like hungry, like I was at the beginning.
You had something to prove.
I had something to prove. I did the Squamish River Gap, like super gnarly, and I was getting exposure again. And Pink Bike asked me to do daily reports from Crankwork, so I started doing that.
Yeah.
And I was on the mic, and then all of a sudden I was getting millions of views, and I got a stack of magazines like that, print still being strong, and the internet growing in numbers and whatnot. And so all of a sudden, I got paid again by a bunch of different sponsors, and I became a pro mountain biker again. And I didn't go back to work doing construction. I was making a living riding bikes and talking, and I did some coaching, and I did some guiding, whatever I could do to make money to support this little family I had. And she was still working at the Vancouver Film School. And she helped me get back on my feet and become who I was.
Actually are.
Who I actually am and who I want to be. And
it's a beautiful story, honestly.
Yeah, she's an amazing girl. She's super cool. She's super funny. Her dad was a race car driver and a jazz musician, and he designed underwater submarines that discovered the Titanic. Super smart guy, but he was always on the road racing cars, so she was there like a punk rock chick. Her friend worked at Ticketmaster, so they used to run off tickets to every single concert
That's it.
that's I've ever heard of. And she was a hot young thing, so she was there. Like, she made out with the lead singer from the Chili Peppers, Anthony Kiedis, after one concert.
Yeah.
And he was trying to take her down, and she's like, I'm not having sex with a heroin junkie. But she did make out with him.
That's so cool.
It's like she was a punk rock chick and had total freedom, no curfew. So she kind of like didn't raise herself, but she was very...
street smart.
Street smart, independent, full, and super high IQ, 3 points below genius on her IQ test. She has a photographic memory. I'll drive through a drive-through, and the guy will be like, hey, are you Brett Tippie? I'm like, yeah, how's it going, man? And he's going, yeah, cool. And she'll be like going, Jason Forsyth. And he's like looking for his name badge. He's got no name badge. And he's like, yeah, how do you know that? She's like, social media. I have 200,000 followers on social media. She saw it and sticks in her brain. We'll be at an event or something, and she'll be like, okay, see that guy? That's the vice president of Samsung. You met 2 years ago in Riva de Garda, has a son named Jake and a daughter named Lindsay. And when they met, he just got a Chihuahua. And I'm like, okay, thanks. And I'm like, hey, how's it going? How's Jake and Lindsay doing? Good. How's that little Chihuahua you got? Oh, good. Hey, what's her name, guy? She's like the brains behind the Brett Tippie Action Sports.
Wow.
And so we work strategically on projects, and we've turned it into a little business. And I couldn't have done it without her. And I love that girl. And I owe her my life. And yeah. And
amazing
she
story.
loves riding bikes. She rides a Ducati. She's cool. And she's just funny. And I don't know how I met the love of my life, and I was lucky enough to do it. But
yeah, that's meant to be.
Yeah, it was meant to be.
That has to happen.
And then we've got 2 daughters, and they're both riders. My oldest one, like I just said before, was 4th in Canada and downhill, and she is a good rider, and her boyfriend is national road cycling champion, and so she's fun to ride with. And my youngest daughter has autism, and she's 12. She's a fantastic artist, sometimes very typical, sometimes atypical, a little bit of hand flapping and scripting where she'll recite the audio from her favorite cartoon in her head, but she's saying it out loud randomly.
Yeah.
But then sometimes she'll be typical.
Yeah.
It's a weird...
It's such a spectrum, man.
It's such a spectrum.
Yeah. It's mostly just a superpower, too.
It is. Her drawing and art is a superpower.
Man.
She's doing, college-level art pieces with rendering 3D. It's wild. But she's never, ever, once, ever said no to a ride. Or skiing. It's hot, cold, sunny, day, night. Anytime I've ever said, you want to go for a ride? She's like, yes. Goes and gets her helmet. 100% of the time ever since I've known her. And same with skiing. Want to go skiing? Yes.
No way.
She's into it.
Yeah.
And she doesn't ride like Jessamy does, like my oldest one. Little Alex is at her own pace, and sometimes she'll be cruising along, and I'll be like, look out for those trees. And she's looking at the birds and she's like, oh my God. But she loves to go. And she's such a good little soul that I find it amazing. So this life with these girls has given me a new lease on life, and to be a provider, and to make money and feed my kids and set them up, hopefully with post-secondary education, has given me a new lease on life
It's given you a new why.
A new why.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not doing it to be cool and meet a hot chick and be rad and have people say, you're awesome. I've had that. I've done that. But I want to provide for those kids, and I have a strong work ethic because I don't have a trade. I don't have education.
You're a mountain biker.
I'm a mountain biker.
Yeah.
And an announcer.
Yeah.
And a video host.
Yeah.
I will work my ass off, travel the world, spend long hours, do the research, whatever I need to do to provide for my little family and be a good guy and being a stand-up dad and help those little souls. You know, I was given a good childhood, and I need to give them a good childhood and a good life. And so I am super motivated to kick ass. And, you know, I don't have to send clips like I have to do that. I have to, you know, provide good entertainment and get good numbers and do my job in different facets that I have to do it. But I'm highly motivated, more than I ever have been in anything, to be there for them. And it's a really, the why, like you say, it's the why. And it's a very strong feeling.
Yeah, and very like genuine. And
yeah. And to think about doing drugs again and doing that, you know, they say in rehab you should never say never, but dude, I'm never doing that shit again. I've seen it, and I'm not tempted. I'm not influenced. And I abhor it. I don't preach against it so much, maybe a little bit, but I'm not gonna drag people down. I'm gonna give them positive affirmations of why they should be healthy.
Yeah.
But I so don't want to do that. I have other important things that I want to do that I find life easy. Not easy, but I find the get up and go to attack life easy for them because I have to.
Yeah.
I want to.
Yeah.
And I love them.
Yeah.
And I want to kick ass for them. So yeah, sorry, I got a little bit emotional.
No, dude, it's honestly, it's beautiful, man. Like that's a crazy story, and just like, I don't know, there's just so many amazing messages in there, you know. And like even what you were saying before, I've had this conversation with my dad. Like my dad, I don't think my dad's ever done a drug in his life. Like I think he smokes.
Same with my dad.
Smoked cigarettes and drank beers. Like that's it.
Right.
And I remember having these conversations with him. Like he just didn't get it in the way. I'm like, dude, people don't want to be drug addicts. Like there's a heavy population of people that are like drug addicts and on the street. I'm like, no one wants that life. Like you think people want to be in New York City on the side of the street begging for money, people looking down like that.
They don't want that.
People they come from all these crazy backgrounds. They have all these stories. And I learned this from like my friends, and I learned this from my experience in life of seeing people go down this road. I'm like, dude, no one wants this shit. Like people slide, like you're on the edge and you just slide off the cliff. Yeah. And some people fall further than others.
It's true.
And some people can grab on and they can get themselves up. Some people can do drugs and it's fine.
And walk away.
And
some people can't.
You know, and it's like, it's just you have to be so compassionate towards people that are in those situations. Kind of like what you sort of showed the police officer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, dude, I got some friends that are just like, would have been amazing athletes. Like, fuck, they were talented.
Right.
Drug addicts.
Yeah.
Went to jail.
Yeah.
You know, like guys that committed
talent's wasted.
Serious crimes. You know, like just really fucked up their lives, but just amazing people.
Yeah.
But then also, their parents were drug addicts. All their family was drug. You know, like it's just such a more complicated story than people, you know,
and
make
then
it
just
out.
Simplifying it.
And then it's just like pushed into a corner, and it's just like, they're a fucking piece of shit.
Right.
See that? You don't want to ever be like that.
Right.
Not like, man, you can end up like that real easily.
What happened to that person to make them do that, you know? Everyone's got a story that'll make you cry.
Yeah.
And it's it's having that compassion when you don't have time, and if you try and save everyone, you're not going to have time to do what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Even if that is maybe one of the things you have to do.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a tough time. Like, I spend a lot of time replying to people on Instagram. If someone sends me a message and goes, dude, I'm 3 years sober because of you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Or how can I get sober? I have to spend that time to do that. Now, I might want to go shred powder, or I might want to go, the guys are all leaving and I'm being that guy holding them up, but someone just put out their heart to me and I'm like, I have to respond to this person, because if I don't do it now, it's going to go down the list. And this person's putting out their soul. They're in a moment of truth. I have to help them. And I try and give back when I can. And it has worked. Yeah. And then sometimes I'm sure it doesn't. You don't hear about it when they don't, because they're embarrassed about it, I'm sure too, and they're off doing it. But it has helped a bunch of people that have messaged me and in person. I don't want to go start preaching to people. Yeah. And, sometimes I'll go to Kamloops or I'll go downtown Vancouver where there's people in a bad way, and I'll just walk around. Sometimes I'll bring socks or T-shirts or old jackets and stuff, and I'll give people that are freezing in the cold, and I'll just give them my old stuff. And then if people want to talk, I'll just talk with them. And I don't start preaching at them, but I'm just saying, yeah, I'm 15 years sober. I've been there. I was a crackhead on the street, and if you want to know how to get sober, I can give you some words of advice. And if they ask it, or if they respond, and then I'll let them have it. Otherwise, I'm just like, yeah, it's cool. I don't want to start being that guy on them, but I definitely want sometimes just go and just talk with people. Yeah. And they're just happy to have someone to talk with sometimes. Yeah. And treat them like a human. Yeah. And some of the things that I've learned work, like little tools, mental tips. And one of them that I find helpful that worked for me was called play the tape forward. And when you're at a moment of truth of deciding whether to use or not, or having the decision made for you by yourself to go use or not, you put yourself forward in time to the end of the run when you're out of money, when you're hungover, when you're jonesing for drugs, when you're like cringing and it's a shitty time. And you just remember that, because normally at the beginning of the run, you just think about getting high, you think about getting drunk, you think about seeing everybody and partying.
Yeah, thinking like 2 hours into the future.
Yeah, exactly. Put yourself 2 days in the future and go forward in time and think about it. Be there. You know you've been there. You know you're going back there again. Be honest with yourself. And then come back in time to where you are, where you can make the choice to do it or not to do it. Yeah. Play the tape forward. And that really worked for me, because I was just thinking about the positives, like, yeah, we're going to score, we're going to get ripped, or we're going to high, where everyone's going to get high, we're going to get wasted. Woo, let's party! Let's get fucked up. Yeah. Yeah. And then you realize, yeah, that will probably happen 2 hours from now, but how's it going to end? You know how it's going to end. So go there in time, come back, and then make a choice of, you know what? I think I'm going to go mountain biking instead and do that. Yeah.
It honestly speaks volumes to the mountain bike community as well. Like, for people to know what you're going through, and for companies not to want to like just fully distance yourself and not let you back in. And, I think it actually speaks to the nature of the community.
In a different field. If I was a doctor and I went back to being a doctor, I don't know if they would be so receiving. Mountain biking is pretty punk rock. Yeah. And the fact that I did what I did, they're way more welcoming when I came back than to say another field. And I'm very thankful for that, because I want to be back.
Yeah. And you've got a lot to offer.
I feel like I do. Yeah. I have a lot of positivity. I've got a lot of history. And when I work, like, it's not about me. Like, I'm not an egomaniac. Maybe I don't know. But it's definitely about the athlete when you're talking to the athlete. And, you do podcasts. You got to make it about them. And when I'm on the mic, like, it has to be about them. Johnny Carson. Remember Johnny Carson, the talk show host? Yeah. He was such one of the best talk show hosts ever, because he made it about them. He could hold the fort down and hold the show and do the monologues, and they did do that. But when it was time to do the guests, he let the guests shine. Yeah. And I try and do that when I'm on the mic and asking good, solid questions, getting into their mind about what they're going through and where they're coming from and how they're going to do what they need to do and how they just did what they did. And you're thinking of good questions and trying to relay good information that the viewer wants to know. And so I'm thinking about that outside of my head and their head and their head, of what they want to hear and how they're feeling, and what's going to be a good question to set them up to make them look good and feel good and be happy with it. So it's always a work in progress, but it's something I'm always striving to do. Yeah. And kill it on the mic by not making it about me. It's about them,
Yeah. When did YT come into the picture for you?
So that was 2016.
Yeah.
And I could have gone there in 2014, and they were going to sign me and Cam Zink at the same time.
Yeah.
And my wife was like, do it. Because I'd come back to Rocky, and I wanted to be loyal. And it was, pretty good money. Like, Europeans pay fair and square. They're straight up, and they bought me a plane ticket to go sign, and it would have been me and Cam Zink sign with YT, and I just wanted to stay loyal to the Freeriders and Rocky, and I did it, and then it wasn't working out. They had a bunch of new people there. It wasn't the same Rocky that I was with.
Yeah. You weren't loyal to the same company in a sense.
Yeah.
Like you were going back to be loyal, but the people you were trying to be loyal to weren't there.
Totally.
Yep.
Totally.
I get that.
They were going through changes with different marketing people and whatnot, and it just wasn't the same. And so I wasn't happy, and I just said, I'm going to try this young brand out. They're cool. And so I reached out to them, and they said it would be an honor. And, I went there, and I rode the bikes, and the bikes are awesome. Like, I used to break Rockies like 1 to 3 frames a year, and I never break YTs. Like, they're awesome, and they ride so good, and they're cool, and the people are cool. Like, they're young, they're motivated, they're hip, and Marcus Flossman, the boss, is into riding. Their bikes are all kind of like downhill oriented. Like, they have trail bikes, but they're like really good at descending.
Yeah.
Their enduro bikes are good at they make a downhill bike.
Very gravity.
Yeah, very gravity.
Yeah.
And I love that because I'm very gravity. I mean, look at the size of me.
Yeah, you're a big boy.
I'm a big
gravity
boy.
Works.
You know what? I know 5 fat people, and I'm 4 of them. So I like that, and I wanted to perform on the downhills, and so I've been riding the bikes. They're amazing. And 2016, I think, was the first year with them.
So it's like 8 years.
It's been 8 years, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And they might have been worried that I might have been like, typecast as a pro rider, right? And it's been a smooth transition, and I've worked hard. I've gotten them a lot of exposure, and they're like super dialed to what they do, and they've had me at different events where I go and entertain the crowd and ride with the people, and so it's a very good marriage. I'm stoked on them. I think they're cool. I love the bikes. Sometimes I just go in my bike room and I just look at my bikes. I'm just like,
oh, there's nothing sicker, eh?
Right? Just like, oh.
Yeah.
And next thing I know, I'm out night riding at midnight in the trails with my Night Rider headlamps. So I'm very happy there. And yeah, I've got a new bike I'm going to pick up later today.
Sick. What are you going to get?
I've got the new Decoy SN, which is their...
Oh, the new mid-size.
Yeah. And it's all black. It's like...
Can you pull it up, Rains? Oh, I love this thing.
Yeah, it's...
The new Decoy SN.
I'm going to put my YT hat back on.
I've got one on order.
Do you?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, you're getting one before me, though, unfortunately.
Right.
They do look good, eh? I think I'm getting the black one, too.
Oh, are you?
Yeah.
Sick.
It looks so good. I think it's the Core 4, Ronnie. That thing.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, it was back.
Go back to the black on black.
Yeah, it's got the black on black. So it's got the glossy black up at the front.
Yummy.
And flat black everywhere else. It's all pretty much murdered out. Oh, look at that thing. And it looks like a regular bike, kind of.
Yeah.
But you got a little Fazua, just a little motor there.
Yeah.
And it's like the regular Decoy is 85 newtons engine. This is like a 60.
Yeah.
And so it's like between trail and boost.
Yeah.
On a regular Decoy, and the battery's lighter, and it I rode it in Saalbach after Kranked Innsbruck this year.
Yeah.
Fuck, it felt sick.
Really?
Yeah, like gapping things. Like it's just so much it's just lighter and
yeah,
and
just
seems
less weight.
more flickable. Yeah. And like there were some switchbacks where you do the Hans Ray nose wheelie and put the back end around. It felt just more nimble and more like a regular bike. Yeah. It felt so good. I was loving it. And I got one waiting right now. And it's got my Magura brakes on it and Maxxis tires and Ergon grips and saddle and NV wheels. And it's like, it's sitting there right now.
You're psyching.
I'm flopping right now. Can you tell?
Dude. I haven't I got to give a shout out to the YT guys and Tanner, because I rode forever, and then I basically just had to sell my downhill bike. So I raced downhill like when I was a kid till I was like 16.
Yeah.
And then I couldn't do both to race moto, so I had to sell my mountain bike.
Right.
And I did a patch of mountain biking for about a year, and then I got into Jiu Jitsu, so then I kind of just stopped. And then I haven't been able to ride for years.
It's expensive.
I just never got another bike.
It reminds
again.
me of that T-shirt I saw that Fanatico, the bike shop in Whistler, put out. Mountain biking, as addictive as crack and twice as expensive.
yeah. But yeah, so I picked up. I got a Decoy, and I actually lent one to Ronnie as well. And because we just moved to San Clemente, and we've just been hitting the trails, and it's just like I love moto so much. That's my thing.
Yeah.
But I can't send it on a moto the way that I can send it on a mountain bike.
Right.
It's just it's easier to just fucking just fully go.
Yeah.
Because it just feels like the consequences are like a little bit less. There's a little bit less going on.
Right.
And it's like I can ride to the trails from my house. It's
user friendly.
Yeah.
You don't have to load and unload. You just ride out your door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
that's nice.
Uncle Glenn always says it's just life behind bars. So like we're bars people, we're like handlebar people, right? So it's like whether it's a moto, whether it's a mountain bike,
or jail.
Or jail. But it's like just you got to get behind bars, and it's so easy on a mountain bike, especially with the e-bikes, and
it makes you want to go.
Yeah,
having an e-bike is like having a chairlift in your garage.
That's a really great way to put it.
That was a Wade Simmons quote, actually.
Yeah. Shout out to Wade for that one.
Yeah. But yeah, it's true. It makes you want to go.
Yeah.
Like I have regular bikes, and I don't want to be fit, and if I want to eat pasta and cheese, then you got to go for a ride and work that off, right? And sometimes you don't want to go though, with a regular trail bike, or you're tired, or you don't have much time.
Well, I think that's the thing.
And so with an e-bike, you can squeeze it in, get a good
hour,
solid ride.
Hour of power. You're doing 5 downs. Power.
Yeah. And so for me, like, I have kids. I'm busy. I'm doing this. I got to work. I got to travel. I'm like, I sometimes have an hour, 2 hours. I put that on the mountain bike or the e-bike.
Yeah.
I'm like, YT Decoy, shameless plug. I'm getting it.
Yeah.
And I'm more than happy. And in 2 hours, you're
going down a lot of shit.
You've done a lot of shit. Exactly. Or in an hour, you get an hour, you're satisfied.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good thing. I love them.
What's the most, what are you riding the most these days in terms of like disciplines?
So
just a lot of enduro stuff?
Well, in the summer, I'm announcing typically a lot of downhills.
Yeah.
And so I do all the Canada Cup downhills. I do the BC Cup downhills. And when I go there, I can get a run in the morning before I start work, or a couple runs. And then maybe at the end of the day, and then I'm at this mountain, so I usually get a day of riding before I start work for the week, the Saturday, Sunday, and then on Monday before I leave, I ride my downhill bike a lot in the summer.
Yeah.
In the shoulder season, like spring and fall, I ride my Capra when I'm shuttling, but I probably ride the Decoy the most.
Yeah.
Because I can ride right out my door. I live at the base of Mount Seymour on the North Shore.
Yeah.
In a place called Deep Cove. And it's it's like Jurassic Park. I was raised in the desert in Kamloops. Cactus, sagebrush, rattlesnakes.
Yeah.
But I met this girl, Sarah, and now I live in Deep Cove. And it's where all the clouds collect in the North Vancouver. So even if the rest of North Vancouver is sunny, we have cloud there all the time.
It's like the Seattle of...
Yes.
Yeah.
And so we got giant ferns and stuff. So I ride right out my door on these nice, wicked, loamy trails. It's always damp there. The dirt is awesome. There's weird fog race winding through the forest, and it's just like its own little world. So I'll ride the Decoy there all the time. And what I do a lot is if I don't get it, like I was saying it earlier, if I don't get a ride in the day, I take my Night Rider headlamp and bar lights, 4,200 on the bars.
What are they? I'm interested. What are they called? Night Rider?
They're called Night Riders.
Night Rider headlights.
So they've been around forever. They came around for surfing. NITE is Night Rider.
Oh, yeah, down the bottom there, first one.
So Night Rider, they were made for surfing at night. So they're super waterproof.
No shit.
Yeah.
Fuck that.
I know.
Sharks are very hungry at night.
Yeah. But
I'm out on that.
So they're waterproof. And what I like about them is that they have a long distance beam at the same time as having a wide flood.
Yeah.
Because you want to see down the trail, but at the same time, the wide flood will give you your peripheral balance when you're on a skinny in the middle of the night,
Yeah.
and whatnot. And so I typically use the Pro 4200s on the bars, which is like a double setup.
Oh, like that one over there?
On the that like right there. That's it.
Yeah.
That's the 4200. They're so bright.
Really?
Yeah, and they're pretty compact for how bright they are. And then I use 2200s on the head. But the other thing that they have is those are their most expensive ones, and they're the most powerful. But they also make smaller ones called the Lumina series, and they're anywhere from like 200 to 2,000 lumens, and they have no external battery. The battery's built right in, and they're sick too. And for a few $100s, you got really bright lights, and you don't have to invest like on the big ones that I use. But I'm sponsored, so I use the brightest ones I can get, obviously.
Yeah.
But they're just a great product, and that's my oldest running sponsor.
Really?
When I went to go sandboarding in the Sahara Desert in the 90s, I went there with a guy named Simon Russell who used to shoot ads for Wendy's, and his mom did like tour group books. And there's a company, a magazine that called Burton to say we need a good sandboarder, and they went Brett Tippie from Canada. They went, okay, cool. So they're like, hey, do you want to go
from BC.
Tippie from BC. And they said, do you want to go sandboarding in the Sahara Desert? And I'm like, yeah, we need another one. I go, bring my little brother. So I brought my little brother, good sandboarder, and we went there. And if you sandboard, it's slow in the heat of the day. The sand is hot and grabby, but in the mornings when it's cooler, it's fast. And in the evenings, it's fast. So that's when most sandboarders do their sand. If it's a typical sand. If it's gravel, it's always fast. But at night, the sand is really fast. It feels like snow. You're arcing turns, whack, 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 carving turns, hitting rollers, catching air. Like, it's super fantastic at night. So we're sandboarding up and down these giant dunes. So they're like 800-900 feet tall. They're like mountains of sand.
Where is this?
The biggest ones. This is on the edge of Morocco.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
And it's right into the edge of the Sahara Desert. So they're massive dunes.
Yeah.
And in the night, the sand is really fast on the base of the snowboard that you use. I just use a regular board. I actually went down to the World Cup sandboarding finals in Chile. And I actually got 10th against all the top sandboarders in the world as a 50-year-old dude.
That's so cool.
But they use a special base. They don't use a regular snowboard base. They use like a harder. It's like an arborite that you put on countertops. I forget the name of it. It's a technical term, but it's like an arborite that you put on countertops. That's tougher than P-Tex that you use in the snow. Won't absorb wax, but it slides you faster on sand. And it's still really fun. It's like back to my roots, but I've been using those Night Rider lights. And there's me standing there shooting that guy doing a backflip.
No way.
Yeah.
That's epic.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you've just been using those lights forever?
So I've been using those lights forever.
I might need to get some.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Oh, I recommend them.
Yeah, okay.
I'll hook you up with a deal.
Yeah, sick.
25% off.
Yeah, use the code. Tippie from BC.
I'm getting a code.
Yeah.
I've never done that. I normally don't do that.
Just make your code Tippie from BC.
Tippie from BC.
It's so
I think I will.
easy. So
I think I will.
easy to
Totally.
remember. Yeah.
No, you should do it. Like, I swear to God, you will be like, you're out there, night riding, like, you're up by you have the trails to yourself.
Dude, I have a Stark too.
You do?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, you're not
85 horsepower?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're not really there's a bunch of places that you could probably ride.
Get away with it.
In the daytime.
Right.
Maybe not.
Unless you talked about it on your podcast to millions of people.
Yeah, no one listens to this show,
Yeah,
so
right.
it's fine. You can say whatever you want.
No one goes to that restaurant anymore. It's way too busy.
yeah.
It's a new Yogi Berra line. Oh, that must be amazing. The Stark, yeah, like it's quiet, eh?
Yeah, like just literally just
Right.
So maybe some lights on that thing.
Right.
Could
I'll
be
hook you up
cool.
with a code for
Could
sure.
be cool.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I know you got to get back to YT. We've just crushed 3 hours of this thing.
Did we?
Yeah, bro.
I hope I didn't get too dark and gnarly on you.
No, I loved it. Honestly, it was an amazing story.
If you're out there, people, and you're fighting for the light, you can do it. Fight for the light. Fight for yourself. Find your passions that ignite you, and you can do it.
I think that's the real message in all this, you know. Like, I think we're all here and listening to this because we love a thing, you know, like whether it's motorbikes, whether it's mountain bikes, whatever it is. And it's like we have this outlet and we have this place where we can go that is positive, and there's community and there's love and there's friendship and there's a future in that. You know what I mean? And it's like, I think that life has a way of tempting you to leave the path and leave the right things and
veer back onto the path.
Just like, I think this is the place, you know, like Jason Ellis, when he was on here, it's like he's back skateboarding and, you know, you're back mountain biking. It's like, just go home. Like, this is a home of sorts.
Right.
To where, yeah, you have all of these positive things and you have these like-minded people, and I think that's the cool thing, is it's like you were at the top of the world that you were a part of, and you slipped down and you went away from it, but mountain biking is the thing
brought me back to the
that brought you
mountaintop.
back, you know.
It is.
And it's a beautiful message, and it's something that I think it takes courage to share and to, you know, to go deep into those
I think it's worth
things.
it. I think it's worth it.
I think so too.
For
honestly.
other people.
Yeah.
It's not worth it for me. What's it going to benefit me? Yeah, I was a dirty drug addict. I don't want anyone to know. At the same time, if I put it out there, it's going to help somebody. And you know what? I want to help people.
Yeah.
I'll leave you with a quote that my grandpa told me. That's my favorite quote of all time. And whether it's good, whether it's bad, I don't know exactly, but I know it's all encompassing. He told me, Brett, live your life like you want to remember it. And I was like, wow. If you want to be the best moto dude, crack that throttle. If you want to be the best sandboarder, go sandboard it. If you want to be the best accountant, work those numbers.
Yeah.
If you want to watch if you want to remember, if you want to be a movie buff, do whatever you want to do as you want to see it from the end of your life.
Yeah.
Live your life like you want to remember it.
Yeah.
It really resonated with me, and I love that.
I love it too, mate. Brett Tippie from BC. Thanks for joining us on the podcast, mate. Appreciate you, brother.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
All right.
Thanks, dog.
If you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe. And to listen to the full 3-hour podcast, search Gypsy Tales in your favorite podcast platform or click the link in the description below. Gypsy Gang.